Marvel. Immortal. Can I obtain the ability of the others when they hit me? Chapter 81. Su Chen looked at the scene before him with interest. Dignified guardian of the earth. Sorcerer supreme by Kamatage. Throughout his life, he has been teaching the temple mage to fight against Domum, to prevent the demon gods of the dark dimension from completely descending on the Ancient One of the earth, and actually swallow the dark power belonging to Domum. This is really shocking. This is like a person's veil being thoroughly exposed, revealing the face of an enemy. Su Chen's indifferent face showed a mocking smile. Unfortunately, you accused me of using a set of high-sounding words. It seems that you, a saint standing on a moral high, are not very clean either. The enemy Kamatage has resisted for generations as the demon god Domum of the dark dimension, but the leader who opposes all of this is absorbing the opponent's power. Su Chen, who had invaded the mage's mind not long ago, had read a lot of knowledge and pointed it out directly. He laughed. At this moment, Su Chen really felt a pleasant emotion. Yes, pleasure. A character who was still criticizing at a high moral point just now had his veil torn apart, his character collapsed, and he became a gradually respectable person in everyone's eyes. This made Su Chen feel extremely comfortable in his heart. If I remember correctly, Cassius betrayed Kamatage because he found that you were unwilling to teach how to become stronger. The disciple you used to be most proud of has discovered that you secretly absorb the dark breath. Perhaps at that moment, he realized that the way to become stronger was to take refuge in Domum. Su Chen started to make up the knife. This is not his baseless nonsense. After all, Cassius vowed to say some related words to other temple mages before. Combining the information in front of you, it can be deduced somewhat. Wow, one stone stirred up 1,000 waves, and an uproar came. Angry, hesitating, confused, puzzled. Is it true? Ancient One Mage. A group of temple mages looked at the beloved sorcerer supreme Ancient One in the past with extremely confused emotions. No, Sorcerer Supreme, how can you absorb the power of Domum? Yes, isn't this behavior the same as the Domum believers? Even if you have difficulties, the power of the dark dimension is extremely distorting people's hearts and will, and sooner or later you will be completely backed by the power of Domum. Impossible, tell everyone, you are not devouring dark power. Words kept coming one after another. Under the dark energy swallowed in the body, the state of Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One is very good, even the pale complexion has been completely improved, and the spirit of the whole person is much better than before the war. But at this time, facing the criticism from the surroundings, he was puzzled and angrily accused. Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One looked dark. It is true. Her words suddenly disappointed many temple mages who were still looking forward to. Even Baron Mordo, who has always implemented the Kamatage philosophy and believes in obedience to nature, clenched his fists. Impossible. How much admiration he had in the past, how angry Mordo was at this moment. He also realized why Ancient One did this. Is it to prolong your own human life? After all, a mortal can't live for so long, even the so-called Earth God has the moment of decay, so you use Domum's power to continue your life. Baron Mordo was very angry. Yes, Ancient One sighed helplessly, but the Sorcerer Supreme looked extremely lonely at this moment. Always kind and peaceful, she decided to give you an explanation. I don't have much life left, so I have to rely on external forces. Everything is to continue to protect Kamatage, to protect this earth. This is her original intention. As the guardian of the earth, she did have a trace of greed, and wanted to try to live longer in the last moments of her life. Of course, one of the reasons she can't say straight is the question of future successors. Cassius was once her most proud disciple, but she fell into the abyss of darkness and couldn't extricate herself. But Baron Mordor is self-sufficient, old-fashioned and rigid, and doesn't know how to work. This is not a qualified future Sorcerer Supreme. And the successor she was looking for was still working as a surgeon in a hospital, and the opportunity that belonged to him had not arrived at the right time. So, she wants to live longer. It's too risky, Sorcerer Supreme, you are playing with fire. That's right, the people who devour the dark power followed suit. They all thought they were in control of Domum's power, but in the end they all eroded their hearts and distorted their will. This is completely contrary to the belief that teaches us. Many wizards shook their heads and sighed, feeling disappointed. Some people even thought about leaving. At this moment, everyone felt that the pillars in their hearts had completely collapsed. Compared with the blind worship of Domum believers, although their sentiments to Ancient One are not so pious, they are still very grateful, admire, and respect each other. But now, there are inevitably more rifts in some people's hearts, and it is difficult to accept this reason. Su Chen just folded his arms like this, watching the scene of their betrayal with interest. Seeing that the guardian of the Earth's human set was torn apart and his heart was suffering and suffering, he really felt a joy in his heart. After all, it was possible for such a highly respected sorcerer supreme to accuse him of arbitrarily tampering with reality on the moral high ground just now. He thought it was a good experience. Diaresis, so are you embarrassed to accuse me of modifying reality? Su Chen stood up directly at this time. A sardonic smile appeared on his indifferent face, and said, now I can completely doubt that your heart has been completely eroded by Domum's will. So, well, please also for the safety of the whole earth, for the safety of humans all over the world, for the safety of Kamatage, and for the health of the earth's magic circle, or you can drive yourself out of the earth. The words said with awe-inspiring righteousness. Full of justice. It even blamed the opponent directly on the moral high ground. Su Chen's indifferent words pierced the Ancient One mage's heart like a blade with the same handle. You, Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One looked angry, and suddenly realized that the other party was ridiculing and mocking his own way of doing things. At the same time, Baron Mordor was also furious, because he naturally heard the meaning of the other party's words. After all, before this, he had suspected that the opponent's heretic god's body, for the sake of the safety of the earth, must completely obliterate the opponent, so that he led a group of wizards to attack. Now Su Chen's words are indeed in line with the arrogant style of some people in front of him. Trust. Su Chen's sudden sarcasm made people very annoyed. Even Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One was embarrassed by these morally pressured words. A centuries-old man with a peaceful mind was ridiculed and speechless by a 13-year-old boy. Maybe I take too seriously the identity of the guardian of the earth. Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One returned to her peace of mind again, and she shook her head and smiled bitterly. Between the words, there is even some self-ridicule. Every drink and peck in the world has its own reasons. Being oppressed and producing revenge can be regarded as conforming to the development of nature. At this moment, the eyes of Agamotto worn on her neck released a faint light. Ancient One's expression became more and more serious, but his eyes were gradually lost in thought. It seems to prove whether he is correct. Through the gem of time, she watched the long river of time, trying to capture where every branch of fate in the world would go under the guidance of this young man. Every choice will produce a new branch of destiny, tens of millions of results or at least. In the movie, Doctor Strange used the gem of time to watch the future timeline to determine how to deal with Thanos from tens of millions of results. But the amazing scene came. The consciousness of Ancient Ones wandering suddenly felt that Su Chen's destiny branch was so long and endless, which symbolized that his future was so vast and long-term. And his destiny branch is so scarce. Generally speaking, even an ordinary person may have tens of millions of branches of destiny, which represents the uncertainty of the other party and the complex diversity of the future. But for this boy, too little. There are no more than a dozen at most. No matter which branch of fate is so long and endless, you can't see the end at a glance. When Ancient One's consciousness kept falling, trying to spy on the opponent's specific destiny, he found that when he glanced at it, it was actually a vast mist, and all the sights were obscured. Can't snoop, can't covet it. His future is so shrouded in the mist. Sorcerer Supreme didn't believe in evil, and his consciousness gradually sank, just trying to get enlightenment from it. Not good. But at this time, Ancient One only felt a splitting headache, and a terrifying force of rejection completely drained her consciousness. This guy. In this short glimpse of the long river of fate, Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One's face was covered with cold sweat, and even the light of the time gem on his neck was suddenly dimmed. No one knows exactly what happened in this instant. It's just that the sudden change in Ancient One's complexion is still a bit shocking. What's wrong with this? Everyone looked stunned. Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One ignored it, but looked at Su Chen with a complicated expression. His fate is unclear, and the future is vast. It's as if the other party is the destiny. So that it is impossible to snoop, to covet, and to get any enlightenment from it. I was wrong in this matter. I took back the words that hurt you before. Everything is the fixed number of the world, and I can't arrogantly criticize the changes in the timeline of the world. Ancient One sighed. Sorcerer Supreme, this. No one thought that Sorcerer Supreme would completely admit his mistake to the enemy just now. Everyone looked at each other. Ancient One, the guardian of the earth, seemed to let go of everything and said to the wizards without any burden, swallowing the power of Domum does bring risks. This matter is considered to be a risk for me. If everyone is really unacceptable, you can leave by yourself. Wow, there was another uproar, everyone was unsure, but they didn't know what to say. Su Chen, who was not far away, still looked cold. He knew that Ancient One had just used the Gem of Time to spy on something about him, but his instinct also told him that the other party had found nothing, and the system he constructed did not feed back a trace of genetic transformation information, obviously not being stimulated by the outside world. Of course, this was also the first time he heard someone else's confession. Sometimes he was thinking, after the journey of escaping from the laboratory, if he got the plea from General Stryker and others to confess his mistakes and admit all the sins of hunting mutants, instead of sending more troops and then completely slandering them after failure. Will he go to another branch at that moment? Do not. It definitely won't. Su Chen has an answer in his heart. These arrogant things will not admit their mistakes at all, and his future branches will not have their existence. At this time, Ancient One's words came again. This temple must exist. No matter what, it cannot be destroyed, otherwise, the projection of the dark dimension will erode here. This is not for the Earth, but for your mutants. Stop talking. This is how her time power acts on the surroundings. This moment, Sorcerer Supreme finally demonstrated his confidence as a guardian of the Earth. The Yorkton City Temple, which had been eroded and damaged a lot in front of him, and the surrounding neighborhoods were completely restored at this time. Even the silhouettes in crimson robes were completely provoked by her time magic to return to the time of Taj Kama. The figures disappeared without a trace. Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One sighed. The power of the Gem of Time is so powerful, she has been able to figure it out superbly, but it can't affect the young man in front of him. Maybe he really is the fate. But at this moment, when the dark-faced Baron Mordo will be completely taken away by the power of time. Puff! A terrifying flying blade penetrated his heart. I remember you. Su Chen's words came like this. You. In the end, Baron Mordor did not expect that he would have such an encounter. He wanted to say something, but the severe pain made him speechless, and his figure quickly faded away and disappeared completely under the power of time. Ancient One frowned, but she could more or less foresee that the stubborn Mordor would never recognize herself. He must be a member of the team that deviated. This moment, Su Chen and Sorcerer Supreme are the only two left in the bustling urban streets that have been completely restored. Looking at Su Chen, Ancient One sighed helplessly, and said, I don't have much time left in my life. Compared to me, your future is vast and promising, and there are more wonderful lives waiting for you. Quote, you are a very unique existence. Maybe you are the destiny. If there is a wish, I just hope that you can let go of some obsessions in your heart, it will make your life easier. That's what I want to say. Don't be nagging, this is a sincere word from an elderly man. At night, Yorkton, a landmark high-rise building hundreds of meters high has become Su Chen's residence at this moment. According to Utopia, this is the Supreme Palace. Su Chen's hands soared out of ring-like things. This is. In the spacious and elegant hall, the White Queen Emma was slightly surprised, but still took the ring fingers thrown in. The suspended ring, a kind of magical item, the Mage of Kamatage was able to open the space channel soon after he got started, and he could travel around the world unimpededly. This, Emma, the White Queen, also changed her face when she heard this. Space powers are extremely rare even in mutants, and the quality is uneven, and they may not be able to achieve the effects that can be achieved by the ring. Let them continue to guard the temple, ignore them. Of course, select some young and clever mutants and send them there. They will become new students of Kamatage and learn the magic knowledge there. This is one of the conditions that Su Chen let them go before leaving. The three major temples that sustain the Earth's magic circle naturally cannot be destroyed. But the protection fee is charged. Mutant Mage is one of the choices. Su Chen's ambitions pervaded his mind and made him understand that if he wants to conquer the stars and the sea, and even expand his horizons to a broader multiverse, his forces need to be stronger. I need a bigger scientific team. This is his request. At least according to Mr. Fantastic Reed's vision, the Universe Cube can be used as a super-large wormhole device, which can be used for interstellar transitions and wormhole shuttles for a large number of troops. Su Chen has read a lot of scientific research materials left by Reed during this period. After the brain domain has been fully developed, he has a new cognitive perspective. At least, after the successful development of the Cosmos Cube, the first key attack was the Asgard God's domain. And he is also very interested in the Sentry robot itself. If the attack order is completely modified to other races, it will definitely become a huge colonial army under his own. Su Chen can't wait to go out of the world and take a look at the scenery outside. I will ask someone to deal with it. Emma, the White Queen, is more like a secretary of life and chief of the house, responsible for handling the affairs assigned by Utopia Supreme. Susan on the side took a bite of the biscuits and said on a whim, "Brother, can I learn magic?" Which girl does not have the dream of a magical girl? Her longing eyes looked at Su Chen like this. Su Chen smiled. Not to mention learning magic, even if his sister asks him to pick a star, he will do his best to do it. Sure, with a connection to Susan's mind, Su Chen doesn't have to worry about any harm. Let them send a female mage over tomorrow, let her teach the introductory knowledge. Great, Susan jumped up from the sofa excitedly. Although in a magnificent palace that I could not imagine in the past, a cloakroom alone is many times larger than a bedroom in the past, but after these days, Susan is still a little boring. Can I too? The super killer Mindy is also a little bit hopeful. After all, as a master of firearms and even assassination, in the environment of an increasing number of mutants, she felt more and more that her use of weapons was too little. Although the other party didn't need anything from her friend, she still looked forward to seeing the need for strength growth. Of course, you and Susan are just a companion. Su Chen directly agreed. Two little girls of the same age don't have much generation gap at all, and they have become accustomed to getting along these days. He also felt relieved that there were super girls around. Then can I throw away my textbooks? Susan held her face in both hands and said expectantly. No. Su Chen has a serious face. This is an indisputable matter. He hopes that his sister will grow up healthily and have a good future when she grows up. As the elder brother, he naturally had to strictly discipline the little witch on behalf of the deceased mother, so as to prevent her from developing a lot of bad problems during the rebellious period. Ah, then I have to learn magic and textbook knowledge, isn't there no time to play? Susan was in a hurry, and she felt as if she had dug a hole and made herself jump down. Learning a little more content will never suffer. Su Chen patted her head gently. Although he spoils his sister, these teaching contents involving growth must not be left behind. After all, Susan's brain is not as fully developed as herself. Emma, the White Queen in a white dress, stood by and watched the scene in front of her silently, with a slight smile on her delicate face. The scene in front of me is so warm. As a mutant, Emma, who has lost family love since childhood, is also looking forward to the scene at hand. Furthermore, who can think of a young man who is indifferent and aloof in the world fighting for hegemony abroad? Treating my sister in my own home is like an elder brother next door, gentle and quiet and mediocre. But once the opponent is alone, the whole person's face reveals firmness and arrogance, and the back that comes and falls on the ground is a bit more solemn, like an abyss. Emma felt a bit bitter inexplicably in her heart, but she knew that Su Chen must have been severely hurt by the external pain that made him come to this point. The same night, West Coast. Compared to the warm and harmonious family atmosphere over there, the entire secret base facility of S.H.I.E.L.D. buried in the ground reveals a sense of solemnity. Just today, our two bases have been discovered, and mutants have captured everything there. If you are not mistaken, the special agents who know some of the affairs will continue to expose more secret bases, and tomorrow I am afraid that there will be 3 more secret bases. Director Hill said helplessly. In the face of mutants with the ability to invade the mind, the work of secrecy becomes more and more difficult to maintain. How do Sentry mutants produce? Mass production has begun, and Dr. Bolivar and Trask Industries have made a guarantee that they will absolutely destroy 99% of the mutants in the world. Very good. Director Hill only felt a little relieved. And at this moment, They also didn't expect that their biggest help had broken into the solar system from the outer space star field. The greatest savior that Nick Fury had pinned before his death has arrived. Soon, against the backdrop of the vast expanse of space, a beautiful figure covered in golden light just flew directly towards the Earth like a meteor from the sky. Captain Marvel is here. In Nick Fury's cognition, this is the most powerful woman ever on Earth. Even the most senior level 10 agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. were unable to retrieve relevant information from them. Throughout the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. Bureau, perhaps only Agent Collison had some impressions of this. Whoosh! Under the background of the vast starry sky, like a meteor from the sky, it burrowed into the blue planet in front of him in an instant. The super-fast flight speed suddenly broke through the atmosphere of her figure. After she felt the signal fluctuation from the pager, she rushed towards the west coast. After leaving Earth for more than 20 years, Captain Marvel Carol once again returned to his home planet. After solving the Kree invasion at the age of the last century, Carol left the Earth and began to act as the unavoidable savior of the universe. So many years passed in a flash. But what problem did Nick Fury encounter? Carol with blonde hair turned into a streamer and swooped down. A pair of golden eyes that were also glowing with energy fluctuations swept across the entire land of the Earth, and her extraordinary visual capture ability allowed her to gather all the sights of cities in her pupils. What? She was very surprised, but it didn't find too many problems. It's not like an alien invasion. Don't even think about a world war. So here comes the problem. It's not the invasion of interstellar forces and the Galactic Empire. Nick Fury won't take a little thing to entertain me. When entrusting Nick Fury with the pager capable of transmitting a signal to the universe, she specifically ordered that unless the Earth is in a major crisis, otherwise the device will not be activated. Certainly, Captain Marvel's strength is indeed very strong, able to absorb and control any form of cosmic energy. However, it is ignorant of the large-scale tampering of the Earth's timeline. Soon, when she flew to the sky above a city, she found that the whole city was pervading in a mist. They're here to kill mutants again, run away. This white mist is poisonous, hurry up, everyone. When the fog raged across the city, the mutants who breathed the gas one by one immediately reacted quickly. They knelt on the ground in pain, their hands tightly covering their hearts, and the terrifying gas toxin caused their internal organs to fail quickly. Not only that, they couldn't even use their superpowers, so that there was no resistance in the mist, and they quickly fell to the ground. Oh my God, what happened? Captain Marvel Carol stopped heading for the destination, and swooped directly towards this large city with a population of at least millions. Help me! A female mutant who fell to the ground in pain stretched her hand forward and tried to ask for help from the lady who was floating in front of her and braving the golden light. It's just that under this terrifying toxin, she foamed at her mouth all at once, her organs turned to exhaustion, and the life fluctuations of the whole person had become very weak. Carol grabbed her hand and tried to heal her body with gentle energy, but the terrifying toxin had completely taken her life. This is a massacre. Captain Marvel Carol was furious. With the radiated perception, she could see a figure after another in pain. Certainly, in this mist that permeated the entire city, there were quite a few humans in it unscathed. They are mutants and die well. No, such indiscriminate slaughter is too horrible and too counter-human. Our body is okay at all. This must be the latest poisonous fog developed specifically for mutants. No, my daughter is human. She is not a mutant at all. Will anyone come to save him? The voices of painful wailing and revelry continued to sound. Some people support killing all the mutants. But many more people are afraid. Such slaughter is really terrible. Even some humans are very angry about it, because many people around them have also fallen. This day, the alien race finally began to go to the world. The mist released by the Terrigen crystal from their race spread to this central city in this way. Different from mutants who slowly awaken their superpowers over time. Becoming an alien requires a catalyst like Terrigen mist to stimulate the genes in the body and successfully awaken the ability. Under this ruthless slaughter, many figures in the city were carbonized. Under the stimulation of the mist, the entire body's skin was carbonized. Suddenly it was a cocoon, completely enveloping their figures. In less than a minute, when the layers of carbonized structure have completely fallen off, it will be the time when the inhuman race has completely awakened. Scan their body structure and genetic information. It was a coincidence. Captain Marvel Carol, who has been in the universe for many years, witnessed this scene. She was angry with the watch worn on her wrist and scanned the carbonized figure around her. As a result, an amazing discovery made her eyes widened. After scanning and analysis, the carbonized human body has a fragment of genetic information similar to that of the Kree. Impossible. Coming to this conclusion, Carol was completely unbelievable. She couldn't believe that her past enemy, one of the 3 interstellar empires in the universe, the gene information fragment of the Kree, was actually inherited in the human body. Is this a joke? It can be scanned multiple times, which is the answer. Analysis shows that this fog spread in the city is very consistent with the biochemical technology of the Kree Empire in the past. Another coincidence just ran into it. Carol only feels that his outlook on life has been impacted. So, Nick Fury only used that pager after discovering the secret tricks of the Kree people. According to the genetic information report of the carbonized person, although it cannot be accurately assessed, at least the inheritance time is at least tens of thousands of years. In other words, the Kree visited the Earth a long time ago, and used their own genes to combine with human DNA to make some biological weapons. The Kree Empire. Their layout is so deep. So, Nick Fury only used that pager after discovering the secret tricks of the Kree people. Carol, who is self-sufficient, believes that, after all, the Kree is her mortal enemy. Presumably Nick Fury discovered this and immediately issued a distress signal. How did the mutants come from? That was the first visit to the Earth by the cosmic gods from the ancient times. They modified some specific human experimental subjects to give birth to a whole new race, mutants. It is worth mentioning that when the celestial group visited the Earth secretly for the 3rd time, it was discovered by the Earth god, and a crushing war broke out. As for the origin of the alien race, it has some origins with mutants. Millions of years ago, the alien race Kree discovered that sapiens on Earth was very special and had a huge potential for life, so they also conducted a series of human experiments on this. The Kree combined their own genes and human genes to form a whole new race, the alien race. This was originally used to create a terrible biochemical transformation warrior. But, because the war with the Skrull people of another universe empire did not allow them to reclaim all the experimental bodies at all, so they left in a hurry. The 2 races did not have any communication in the past. Not to mention that the royal family members of the Inhumans moved the Attilan base to the moon in the past. Certainly, a reality modification fluctuation caused by Su-Chen also affected the Inhuman race itself. Some people from the Inhuman race disappeared somehow. When the current Black Bat King learned that this inexplicable reality fluctuation originated from the Earth, he was extremely furious, and he ordered the alien races on the Earth to immediately use the Terrigen crystal to catalyze more newborn alien races. In addition, it is necessary to find out the murderer behind the scenes to give an explanation to the Inhumans. Ever since, after gradually investigating and learning about the rise of mutants and the matter of the number 1 mutant, Maximus, from the Attilan royal family, sneered and directly ordered the spread of Terrigen in 2 large cities. Missed. Feel the pain. He spread his arms and sang loudly in an aria style. The catastrophe imposed on our alien race, we will give it back to your mutants 100 times, or even tens of thousands of times. Let you experience the pain of extinction of mutants. This is a collision in fate. In fact, the 2 races naturally have contradictions that cannot be reconciled. After all, the mist released by the Terrigen crystal ushered in a new life for the alien race, a mutation, an awakening, and the beginning of acquiring supernatural abilities. But for mutants, this mist is poisonous, deadly, and even Omega-class mutants can't support it for long. From the root, it was the influence exerted by the Kree people millions of years ago after studying the mutant experiment left by the Celestial Group. In the comics, this is how the Inhuman races stepped on mutants to rise rapidly on the Earth. It's time to enter the Earth long ago. Tucked away in a prosperous lunar city, there is simply no one's beautiful scenery. As the younger brother of the Black Bat King and the prince of the Attilan royal family, Maximus was very aggressive and wanted to take this opportunity to completely win a base area belonging to the alien race. Compared to the bumpy back of the moon, or the prosperous earthly beauty of the Earth is more attractive. Those mutants who died don't care. Attention, they will immediately recycle the newly born alien races that have been completely carbonized and cocooned. His order came as scheduled. However, some Inhumans, subordinates expressed concern about this. Perhaps we should be afraid of the mutant number 1. It is said that the alien races living on the Earth are very afraid of that young man's strength. Humph, Maximus sneered, I thought you were a mutant. Needless to say such a long-term aspirational words, are you still worried about him coming to die in this foggy environment of Terrigen? That is, a team of mutants that came just now, all equipped, broke into the fog of Terrigen without believing in evil, and was directly poisoned to death. The fog of Terrigen that has been shrouded in this mountain city for a long time has not cleared. This is what they decided to broadcast based on the local climate. A large city with millions of people is built on the mountain. As the mountain winds and the fog of Terrigen sink slowly, it will not be long before the residents of the entire city will be completely affected. Under the influence of the fog of Terrigen, not only the mutants died of direct organ failure, but also many humans were brutally killed. The reason is very simple. That is, many people in human genes carry the X gene, and it is only because the gene is not expressed that it looks like ordinary people. General Stryker is a typical example, and his son Master Illusion is a mutant. The same is true. This is why the Sentry robot in the movie, X-Men, Reversing the Future, after identifying the invisible mutant gene, almost all ordinary humans have become extinct. Soon, the subordinates of these alien races living on the Earth began to work, preparing to completely contain the cocooned new members. And at this moment, despair, a crisp footstep resounded beyond the mountain city. The slender and thin figure glanced at the city built on the hillside and gradually filled the mist. He stepped out again, and the whole figure disappeared completely under the ripples of the space on the soles of his feet. Su Chen arrived. He just broke into the fog of Terrigen alone. The endless fog covered the sight of others in this way, and the visible field of vision was very narrow. Su Chen is naturally not in this category. Such a big genocide had spread to the Utopia camp on the East Coast more than 10 minutes ago, and everyone was furious. This is amazing. Not only don't let them go mutants. Wouldn't even the humans who carry the stealth mutant genes let it go? This is not a big base. As a result, the entire mountain city gradually became a dead zone, and it was noticed that an unknown person was carrying a cocooned carbonized figure on the street outside. The surviving humans closed their doors and windows, holding guns in their hands, and were extremely afraid to cower in their houses, waiting for rescue. That's horrible. In the face of the Terrigen mist that raged in the mountain city, the mutants couldn't be more mournful. They couldn't break in at all. The first squad dispatched before had lost the signal of life. Helpless. No response. In such a bad situation, Su Chen came alone. He is not a mutant. Naturally, it will not be eroded by this fog of Terrigen, and even the genes of infinite evolution have no sign of this fog, obviously without any irritation. Supreme. At this moment, a figure knelt down on the ground in pain, stretched out his hand to Su Chen, as if he had seen hope. It's a pity that his honorific just now is already a reflection. Stop talking. Lie down on the ground without his breath. Looking at the mutant figure who fell on the ground, Su Chen didn't say much, and his indifferent face didn't have any mood swings. It's just that the cold light in his eyes is getting colder and colder. Despair. He just walked forward like this. The fog of Terrigen completely shrouded everything here, and vision was indeed a trouble for others. It's just that Su Chen's gleaming eyes can see through everything so well. There is no obstacle to his vision, just like this, a strange species walking on the street 100 meters away. The reason why he is said to be alien is because his mind has horns. Looking at it this way, people will definitely subconsciously think that they are mutants. But mutants simply can't survive in such a foggy environment, so an answer that is ready to come out is almost reached. The executor of all these conspiracies. Perhaps you should be very willing to tell me what happened. There is no sign of it. There was no sound of footsteps. Suddenly, when a word rang in his ears clearly and unmistakably, the member of the alien race was still taken aback. But after taking a closer look, a cold sweat suddenly appeared on his face, and the words just now resounded directly in his mind like a magic sound. This is a discourse that involves the spiritual level. He suddenly turned around. A pair of monster-like vertical pupils shrank so slightly, as if adjusting the focal length, gathering all the distant figures under the mist in the pupils. You are. The complexion of the members of the Inhumans changed slightly. Isn't the figure that reveals aloofness and sternness the number one mutant who has reverberated in the world recently? He actually came. Wrong. Why did he come here? His heart was screaming. But less than a second. With no energy fluctuations to follow, he found that his figure was standing within reach of the opponent. The members of the Inhumans were stunned. But at the same time, his entire neck was hugged tightly by an invisible force. His feet were off the ground, and his limbs struggled desperately like a drowning person. What followed was a psychic power that was enough to make him a headache, which penetrated into his head. Do not. At this moment, he suddenly realized that the memories of his life were like the same book, letting his opponent read it unguarded. Inhumans. Atalan, the miracle city on the moon. Terrigen Mist. Royal Maximus. The mist will cause a deadly percentage of death to mutants, and humans with recessive mutant genes will also have a high probability of death. Only alien races can evolve from it and thus awaken their abilities. Su Chen summed it up plainly. He didn't expect that the mass extermination event this time would be initiated by another hidden force, the Inhuman race. Very good. Su Chen's mind turned into an invisible thought force giant hand and twisted the opponent's neck like this. Enemy attack. An enemy is coming, it seems like the number one mutant. At the same time, at the moment when the first member of the Inhuman race fell, Gordon, a member of the alien race who was responsible for staying in the entire city, had already captured a message of the death of a compatriot. In the transformation of Terrigen's fog almost 10 years ago, he lost a pair of eyes for this, but Gordon, who has lost his light since then, has also gained terrifying perception. Of course, he also has another fast movement that is almost teleporting. After the message was delivered, Gordon suddenly activated his body. Whoosh! The ultra-high-speed athletic posture directly drags out the afterimages. Suddenly, a lightning swaying arc came. Less than half a second. He has crossed a small half of the city, and with his keen capture of murderous intent, Gordon's perception has completely outlined a slender and thin figure on the ground not far away. Then, he rushed up. Under ultra-high-speed movement, even just extending a finger and gently touching the opponent's body can cause a terrifying bombardment. And Gordon raised a fist directly now. He is hidden in a village on the Earth. There is not much contact with the outside world. However, the prestige of the number one mutant is like a thunderous ear. After hearing that mutants have risen on the Earth, many members of the royal family are quite moved. They ask themselves if they were not inferior to the mutants, why they should continue to retreat and give such a good piece of human beauty to each other. Let me win the first prize for His Majesty the Black Bat King. Gordon is full of ambition. His shining arc of light came so quickly and came to Su Chen's face. I have to say that his perception is indeed very keen, and the place where his punch hits really falls on Su Chen's face. But this is not the first time Su Chen has faced a person with super high-speed mobility. To this end, the infinitely evolving mutant genes have already produced restrained coping methods, that is, the dynamic visual capture capabilities of Su Chen's eyes are extremely exaggerated. In his pair of incomparably clear eyes, at this time, it was like a slow-moving movie, slowly playing back the movements of the figure killed in front of him frame by frame. Too slow. This is the dying word given by Su Chen to the other party. Then, boom, Su Chen also threw out his fists, but the latter came first, bursting the opponent's head like a watermelon with a bang. Gordon sacrificed his life for his arrogance and ignorance. Gordon, someone yelled tentatively from a distance. Because of the white mist, the existence of no perceptivity is naturally extremely limited, but he exposed his position with just one sentence. The member of the Inhuman race cried out in pain, and a wave of thought momentum turned into an invisible giant hand to grab it out of thin air. Whoosh! The invisible giant hand just grabbed his figure and threw it into the distance like a sandbag. With a loud bang, another figure that was approaching following the sound was knocked out. Standing in the city on the top of the mountain, Maximus cursed inwardly on his cold face. His majestic mental fluctuations had already noticed the changes at the foot of the mountain. He didn't expect that the number one mutant would just come. Wrong. Why is he gone? Maximston, who only felt the impact on his outlook on life, ordered with a mental wave, flog him, immediately harvest his power for me. Flog. A few years ago, it was completely selected by the Atalan royal family, and a small number of alien races in an Earth village began to receive the catalytic transformation of Terrigen crystal. From that moment on, he had acquired terrifying and extraordinary superpowers. However, after learning that many people had failed to accept the transformation, and the level of awakening ability was very different, there was an obsession in Flogging's heart, that is, whether every member of the inhuman race deserved to have this heaven-given power. Too weak. They are not qualified. Then, in the fog of Terrigen spreading across the mountain city, Whiplash himself even executed most of the unqualified newborn alien races himself. Weak. Rubbish. It's worthless. The alien races who had not survived the cocooning and carbonization were reaped mercilessly. Just like disposing of a discarded garbage, the mutilated body was kicked out with a flogging. This is a brutal monster. The treatment of compatriots is still the same. If it is not for the reuse and affirmation of the royal family member Maximus, no member of the alien race is willing to work with him. Atalan believes in elites. Useless defective products can only be counted. Whipping. That guy became famous for absorbing nuclear explosions, almost as famous as yours. Your abilities are a bit similar. As long as you solve him and absorb the opponent's power, the royal family will definitely continue to promote you. Maximus was so good and inviting. His ability is telepathy, able to easily invade, paralyze, and control one's consciousness and thoughts. Under the erosion of his soul, this alien race born in a slum has been subtly and thoroughly brainwashed by him. He deserves the same name as me. Flogging rage endlessly. His pupils were completely red, and after entering the state, a row of hideous bone spurs appeared on the back of the spine, extending all the way up, and even a row of hideous spikes appeared on the back of his head. The ordinary sweatshirt was completely supported by his skew muscles and shattered with a puff. Roar. The whip roared, as if it was a fierce beast burrowing out of the primeval forest, with red eyes hungry, and almost rushing towards Su Chen with his limbs running. Boom. The earth was shaking. Every step of the flogging is printed on the ground to form a pit. What's shocking is that compared to Gordon, who is as fast as lightning, the momentum of this guy's collision is almost like a full-speed train. Die, he roared, and the raised right hand suddenly released a shocking wave of terror. In the blink of an eye, the ball of light in his hand was thrown out like this, and the blazing light was quickly released, turning into a magnificent wave of destruction that swept this area. Boom. The earth completely collapsed and evaporated under the terrifying light, and the surrounding buildings completely collapsed and disintegrated in an instant, and a whole city was completely eroded by the light and turned into nothing. The flogging is a killer move. To be honest, this extremely magnificent super-destructive light wave is not much worse than Su Chen's previous nuclear explosions, and even far better than some. After all, the nuclear equivalent that Su Chen absorbed was not much, it was just the energy generated by the self-destruction program of a base. No wonder the flogging is so contemptuous. It turns out that he actually looked down on the other side's fame caused by the sensation. Seeing whether I have this hand, what's so great? Flogging sneered. Under such a catastrophe, Su Chen's figure was the first to be affected. Can be the next second. The triumphant expression on his face solidified, and the light waves that had been blooming ceaselessly contracted, as if they had been swallowed by a black hole. The light dimmed suddenly, and twisted like a whirlpool, rolling into a figure standing on the ground in the distance. Flogging sneered. The absorption and release of energy is an ability shared by both of them. He will too, but the flogging thinks that the other party is not worthy of the same name as him. Because the energy he absorbed can be transformed. The destructive light wave power just now turned into a transmitted space energy. In an instant, the flogging figure disappeared, as if a ghost, completely appeared behind Su Chen. The energy fluctuation was transformed again, and turned into a strange skeletal force that prompted a slender bone blade to grow on his arm. This is the bone manipulation he just harvested from a new member of the alien race. Now, he wants to harvest the opponent's ability. Whoosh. The bone blade that pierced through the air almost cut through the space, leaving a trail, and this posture alone was enough to make people feel the sharpness of it. In order to cooperate with this sneak attack, far away, Maximuston, who was watching the battle on the top of the mountain, used his own surging spiritual energy, as if an invisible trend rushed to the opponent's head. Something's wrong. Under the impact of this violent mental fluctuation, the other party's mind actually had a glimpse of the mental barrier, and it was as easy as a dam to stop this shock of mental energy. Maximus gritted his teeth. Not good. With just a collision of minds, he already felt that the other party's state of mind was so peaceful, without a trace of panic, but as unfathomable as an abyss. During the brief collision, he was inexplicably intimidated, and he already understood that every move of the flogging was ridiculous in his eyes. The flogging froze. Click. The pierced bone blade was thus turned around by Su Chen, who easily grasped it thoroughly with his right hand. With just such a grip, he couldn't make any further effort. Even if he was struggling with strength, he still remained motionless, unable to move half a minute. Really, a guy who doesn't know the heights of the sky. I really envy you for being so simple and innocent. Su Chen looked at him with indifferent eyes. Click. The extended bone blade was spit out a little by his strength, and it was completely crushed. Pieces of tiny bone blades collapsed and flew out. Flogging was really unbearable to the opponent's contemptuous eyes. Relying on his control of all external energy, he continued to squeeze his fists without a trace of fear. Admittedly, he can indeed absorb energy. The kinetic energy bombarded by the physical fist, and even the energy fluctuations erupting at close range can be absorbed by him. But, the upper limit of energy absorption depends on the container of one's own body. Without a good wooden barrel, how can you hold more water? Goodbye. At this moment, the cells in Su Chen's body were like reviving and gushing out energy, and the fist of his right hand filled with more and more majestic power. He just hit the opponent's body head-on. Boom. Just one meeting. Most of the flogging sole burst open, and frantic energy fluctuations poured out from his bursting body. Puff. There was a burst of blood bursting out of the flogging body. He did not know whether to live or die, and completely swallowed the power of Su Chen's punch with his energy-absorbing abilities. But his body simply cannot support such a majestic strength. So, it's like a bucket can't withstand the excess amount of water at all. Once it floods in too much, the planks built one after another will crack. The current flogging is such a situation. Most of the body just broke apart like this. Not only was the blood pouring like a fountain, but even the energy that had just been absorbed was also vented. He deserves the same name as me. This is the heartfelt voice of the flogging just now, full of disdain and contempt. But, it wasn't just Su Chen's fist hitting him just now, but they were almost undefended head-to-head with each other, and the fisting fist also fell on Su Chen's body. Unfortunately, the force of the violent attack poured into Su Chen's body, as if a stone fell on the surface of the lake, only to set off waves of water ripples on the surface, and then the whole stone sank into the lake. There was not a trace of influence, not even a trace of shaking his physique. Exhausting all his strength, the strength of a punch that had to be divided into one was so dissipated without a trace, and there was no clue. Only at this moment did I realize how big the gap between the two was. Obviously the other party was in front of him within reach, but under his increasingly dazed consciousness, he only felt that the distance between them was separated by an insurmountable gap. Such a guy shouldn't exist. Consciousness disappeared. The flogging figure fell down in such a crash. Next. That's how Su Chen's indifferent words came. Far away. Above the mountains, Maximuston, who was dressed in strange clothes, changed his face greatly, because the other party's words had echoed in his spiritual realm. This is also a master of the mind department. Under his extremely keen telepathy, he suddenly realized that there were appalling spatial ripples rippling around him. The opponent wants to cross an extremely long distance and kill it. Not good. Maximus had already made a prejudgment, and naturally he would not stand in place and be slaughtered. He knew that the enemy would be killed directly from his side. So when one kicked the ground, the whole figure moved away quickly. Under the rippling waves, Su Chen's slender and thin figure really shuttled through it. But Maximus did not look happy because his judgment was correct. Because at this moment, his figure was suddenly completely pulled back by an invisible drag force, just like a gravitational force coming from the opponent's right hand, completely attracting it. Maximus could not have this power at all. When he was dying and struggling, his most proud mind manipulation ability was constantly released to the man in front of him. But still relying on him to concentrate and condense the psychic power into a sharp blade, he couldn't penetrate the psychic barrier in the opponent's mind. Why can he be immune from mental attacks again and again? Why can he, the number one mutant, come and go freely in the fog of Terrigen? Under the scream of death, Maximus was already desperate. Little did he know that he exhausted all his psychic energy. Compared to the psychic master Charles and the mutants, he checked it out. How could it have a slight impact on the already immune Su Chen? Just when Maximus was completely desperate and even closed his eyes for this, a surging spatial fluctuation quickly enveloped his whole body, completely involving him in a spatial vortex. For a time, the figure in front of him just disappeared out of thin air, completely losing his vision. Interesting. Su Chen looked at the mountain not far away with interest. I saw it at this moment. A burly man in a tight-fitting black uniform appeared out of nowhere. His face was arrogant and cold. Without a word, the whole tall and strong physique was full of noble and arrogant temperament. There is a dog next to him. A big dog named Tetanus has the ability to transmit electrocardiograms, and one thought is enough to transmit anyone through space. Just now Maximus was taken away like this. At this moment, a figure fell from the air embarrassedly and lay down nearby. Maximus sulked subconsciously. But when he felt a terrifying and dignified majesty nearby, he suddenly realized that his brother had arrived. Welcome your majesty, the Black Bat King, to come to Earth in person. He wiped the cold sweat from his face, and faced this fearless existence with some guilty conscience. So you are the leader of the alien race. Su Chen suddenly learned a lot from the consciousness of searching for a member of the alien race. Rumor has it that this Black Bat King possesses a terrifying power that can cover the world. This power even makes his fellow aliens tremble. And now the Black Bat King, who is not angry and majestic, launched an attack on this. He did it. Do not. To be precise, he spoke. Die. The lofty Black Bat King was full of contempt, just like announcing the death of a person. Speaking in a casual manner, his words actually contained an incomparably terrifying power of destruction. Boom. With just the word, death, in a peaceful tone, a terrifying pseudosonic power turned into a cone-like shock wave that swept across the mountains in front of him. Under this terrifying mighty power, slices of high mountains continued to collapse and shattered. Naturally, Su Chen is the first to bear the brunt. Boom. With the reverberating sound waves lingering, the mountains that landed on his feet also collapsed, and the terrifying aftermath set off an earthquake, directly shattering the ground, and completely plunged the city into a crack in the ground. The words of the Black Bat King are the catastrophe of the world, the majesty of the world, and it is so easy to destroy the world. But under the terrifying vast sound waves, all the mountainous areas in front of him were completely blank. Su Chen was the only one who was suspended in the air, holding his hands in front of him, and surrounded by a thin film of energy light, constantly swallowing and absorbing the sound waves that have been superimposed on each other. However, the pervasive sound waves continued to reverberate in the air, so that the weakest eardrum of Su Chen's body ruptured, and even the spiritual realm was stirred by the sound waves that penetrated. Sonic resistance plus 300. Spirit resistance plus 300. The constructed system quickly feeds back the changes that occur after the body is stimulated. Haha, you should be fortunate that the Black Bat King didn't remove the limiter, otherwise you will have lost your soul. And the mutant number one will not kneel down and surrender, otherwise you will be completely shattered like the mountain just now. Maximus can be described as a bullshit at this moment, with a smug look on his face. As for the Black Bat King, he just folded his arms like this, his face was cold and arrogant, his chin was slightly raised and he looked at Su Chen's figure with such contempt and coldness. The leader of the alien race, the supreme leader of the Atalan royal family, completely appeared on the stage in an overbearing manner. He has produced an extremely terrifying pseudosonic power with just the word, death, completely shattering the mountain range in front of him. The aftermath of sound alone caused a terrible earthquake disaster. If you don't call it, it's a blockbuster. The Black Bat King thoroughly interpreted this sentence, and every word can be turned into a terrifying energy that shocks the world. What is interesting? The leader of the mutant on the earth in front of him completely met with the leader of the alien race. Very good. The mutants who died in the city will take the life of your alien emperor as a repayment. That's how Su Chen's indifferent words came. Next second. The aura in his body is constantly rising, and the billions of trillions of cells in his body seem to be small melting pots, exuding a little energy and luster. For a while, Su Chen's whole body was surrounded by a radiant energy sheen. Boom. At the moment his body was activated, his heart surged with unparalleled power and 100 limbs appeared, so that the speed of his instant burst broke through the sky. The Black Bat King, who was slowly rising, suddenly frowned. So fast. Like a teleportation, Su Chen's figure dragged the afterimages and approached the enemy. Roll. The Black Bat King was furious, and his voice suddenly spurted with a terrifying pseudo-sonic power. That terrifying sonic ability directly caused substantial cracks in the air, and quickly rippled out in the form of water ripples, directly permeating the entire sky in front of him. Boom! The emptiness trembled, and the terrifying sound wave directly trembled the world. Oh my God! In Maximus's eyes, it was as if the sky was about to collapse, shaky, as if to collapse just like this. This is too scary. I can't imagine anyone can survive such a devastating wave. Wrong. But face slaps always come very timely. When Maximston saw the figure of the young man, he just withstood the impact of the sound wave and slammed into the body of the Black Bat King. Boom! Su Chen's dull punch hit the opponent's body so straightforwardly. In an instant, the Black Bat King's figure fell from the air like a meteor, and completely crashed into the earth at an oblique angle. The earth collapsed, and smoke rose up like wolf smoke. Black Bat King. Maximus only felt incredible. Even the big dog Tetanus on the side is serious, wondering if he wants to use the ability of ECG transmission. But at this time, another roar came like this. Boom! The rising plume of smoke collapsed in an instant. The terrifying pseudo-sonic wave instantly caused the earth in a radius of more than 10 miles to burst instantly, and the endless earthquake continued to roar, so that the soil continued to roll and rise like a sea wave. And the sky area that roared was suddenly caught in a terrifying explosion that exterminated the world. The annihilated light wave bloomed in the air from this, and the terrifying destructive energy was left in the wind, as if even the sky was completely blasted out of a hole by this blow. Horrible. It is terrible. Although the blow didn't land in the mountain city head-on, the earthquake fluctuations alone caused the buildings in the distance to collapse, the ground collapsed, and the mountain collapsed. The horror of the Black Bat King is self-evident. When he is angry, a single word is a nuclear explosion, and even whispers can form a very considerable explosive energy. Therefore, the inhuman emperor has been silent all the time. Medusa was translated by the royal family, and his voice was conveyed to his people through telepathy. Now, he is angry. A mere mutant dared to provoke his dignity. In order to punish the opponent, he directly removed the limiter, and in his anger, bestowed the opponent a devastating energy with a terrifying blow. Dead. The ECG transmission of Tetanus took Maximus away from the area just now. If it hadn't been transmitted in time, I am afraid that the two of them would be completely killed by the sound waves that shook the world. So this is why the Inhumans are afraid of the Black Bat King. His power is too terrifying, too unreasonable. For this reason, a special person created a limiter for him, so that the sonic energy released by His Majesty the Black Bat King was slightly weakened. But even so, the powerful aftermath that cannot be completely controlled is enough to kill many people. Now that the Black Bat King took off the limiter, he was undoubtedly completely angry. That guy must be dead. Maximus couldn't help but smile as he watched the unquenched energy fluctuations in the sky. But in the next second, he realized that something was wrong. Because under that frenzied turbulent wave fluctuation, there was actually a surging life fluctuation that kept rising. Not good. Your Majesty Black Bat King, that guy is not dead yet. Maximus immediately reminded. This moment, the aftermath of the chaotic energy on the horizon was suddenly attracted by a horrible attraction, and it was swallowed frantically by the Su Chen whale in the middle. Body strength plus 100. Sonic resistance plus 300. Awakening. Sound wave absorption. In this way, the infinitely evolving gene quickly evolved a restraint method under the stimulus from the outside world just now. Not only that, the blood flowing from Su Chen's ears was like looking back in time, completely recovering intact. Never ignore this, but an immortal physique. Certainly. It's all over. The Black Bat King exaggerated the pseudosonic power every time, but it caused Su Chen's skin surface to generate a sound wave absorption characteristic. This is impossible, the Black Bat King said in disbelief. He couldn't believe that the figure above the air was unscathed. And the words he questioned suddenly turned into horror, and the power completely resounded in the sky. From this moment, when the rippling sound waves fell on the surface of Su Chen's skin, it produced an absorption effect. Just like the special stealth coating of a fighter jet that completely absorbs the detected radar waves, Su Chen's skin surface completely absorbs the pseudo-sonic waves that are constantly rippling. As for the destructive wave engulfed, it was naturally completely swallowed by him in the way of energy absorption. After going back and forth, the pseudo-sonic energy released by the Black Bat King was enough to destroy everything, and it completely disappeared in the area around Su Chen. Congratulations, you are done. At this moment, it was Su Chen's turn to step on the void, condescendingly overlooking the already stretched opponent. Pitiful, it's so pitiful, whoever can't kill me will make me strong. This is a classic philosophical sentence. Behind the inspiration is the best portrayal of Su Chen himself. Certainly, up to this moment, he did not know how his immortal body could be killed. At first, he still had a dim consciousness that he could reorganize and resurrect as long as one granule cell remained. Now, he has realized that his existence cannot be obliterated, rooted in reality like an anchor. Infinite evolution. Immortal. This is the characteristic that makes the enemy extremely desperate. How to solve this problem? At least the entire Aegis resistance is still thinking about a solution. And the arrogant inhuman royal family is on the back of the moon, but they are unwilling to understand, or even disdain to understand the terrifying characteristics of this number one mutant. I'm afraid you are going to see you again. Su Chen's plain words do not possess any terrifying pseudosonic ability. But there was no trace of emotional ups and downs in the plain tone. Listening to the Black Bat King's ears was like a nightmare constantly lingering. Impossible. His stern face showed an incredible look. From the condescending bird's eye view of the opponent, the Black Bat King only felt extremely humiliated. He shouldn't lie on the ground. The one who is above all is oneself. To this end, he roared loudly, "Die to me." This time, the Black Bat King was extremely angry. The words once again condensed the power of terror, and the power of the pseudosonic wave bombarded the world with the vast energy of destroying the world. He does not believe in evil. This time he did everything to defend the dignity of his alien emperor and his own strength. But, under the impact of pseudosonic waves again, the world roared, and the void trembled. At this moment, the sky seems to be crumbling for this, completely collapsed. But under the vast sound waves pouring into the sky, Su Chen's figure was so safe and unharmed. The skin of his body is really like the stealth coating of a fighter plane absorbing radar waves, and the sound waves sweeping around the body are so constantly absorbed that the area around him is completely untouched by energy. Impossible. Maximus was completely stupid. The emperor of the alien race was able to easily destroy the vast sound waves of a city, but he was unscathed by the opponent. And, it's easier than once. Not good. His telepathy suddenly realized that a pervasive killing intent fell from the sky, and the figure above the sky finally began to strike a fatal blow at the Black Bat King. Whoosh! Accompanied by a sonic boom in the sky, Su Chen in the sky was bathed in vast energy fluctuations, and fell straight like a shooting star. The Black Bat King immediately realized that his dynamic vision could not even capture the opponent's figure. The strong sign of death made his instinct immediately generate the urge to escape. Flee without a fight. This is the subconscious answer that the body tells instinctively. The Black Bat King was ashamed of his instincts, but looking at the figure who was violently colliding with the sound waves, he had realized that he had no room for resistance. A wave of spatial ripples filled his surroundings. Big Dog Tetanus sighed, and immediately began to transmit the other members' ECG. The figure of the Black Bat King began to fade away. It's this trick again. Su Chen sneered. Don't even think that the same move will completely work in front of him. His eyes had a direct insight into the changes in the movement of space, and after abruptly fell into the air, his right hand suddenly stretched into the ripples of water in front of him. What? The figure of the Black Bat King who was trapped in the space channel was grasped by Su Chen's right hand. Like a big fish caught from a river, endless water ripples continued to rippling in the air. Finally, Su Chen's right hand brought the body of the Black Bat King back to the reality in front of him. Die. Su Chen's clenched fist in the other hand just bombarded out with such ruthless face. Boom. Within reach of his reach, his fist was wrapped in terrifying majestic power, and it was printed on the head of the Black Bat King, and it completely shattered the opponent's head with a bang. Just for a while, the Black Bat King, who came personally, was killed before he had time to display his ambitions. The lives of the mutants who have died will be completely paid for by the king of your alien race. The mutant king from the Earth just so ruthlessly killed the alien king. At the same time, in the big cities and towns in the central part, all the alien races who have brewed this catastrophe and tragedy have been killed. These people with Carrie Jean wantonly spread the fog of Terrigen and slaughter the human beings on the Earth, so that Captain Marvel and Carol could not bear it. She has fought in the universe for so many years, mostly to deal with the huge Carrie Empire. As a result, she didn't expect to see the layout of the Kree people on the Earth on the first day after returning to the Earth. These creature-modified warriors made her feel extremely sick. Soon, her figure followed the previously recorded emission signal fluctuations, heading towards the west coast. Are mutants being slaughtered again? Carol's eyes swept across a town, and saw a tall automatic robot capable of continuously generating new abilities to kill mutants based on the characteristics of mutants. Sentry Robot. This is when she hacked into the background program of this machine from the Alien Watch and got the answer. She frowned. As she learned more and more information about all parts of the Earth, she had realized that the living conditions of the mutants on the Earth were very bad. Ding. After scanning, the target location that is about to arrive continues to send signals to outer space, and the radio waves are amplified by the sun and spread directly to the star field at least dozens of light years away. What? The words suddenly conveyed by the Watch's intelligence system immediately changed Captain Marvel's complexion. Analyze the information under the spectrum. What are those S.H.I.E.L.D. personnel doing? Have they hacked their device for directing signals to the universe? But that is a directional transmission signal. It will not be intercepted by other alien beings. And their actions are more like raising a big loudspeaker to announce news to the alien existence in the whole universe. Isn't this kind of brainless action announcing to the entire universe where our Earth is located? The information has been cracked. The intelligence system of the Alien Watch suddenly cracked the message sent in it. Then came the voice of a little girl. My civilization has fallen. Don't hesitate, please come here to replace us and destroy us. Single quote. And what made Captain Marvel Carol even more collapsed was that they had already communicated thoroughly. Not long ago, Valeria Richards, the daughter of Mr. Fantastic Reed, nicknamed Ji Duoxing, spent the darkest period of her life. Her parents are dead. My brother is like a numb robot, hiding in the house and constantly trying to pry open the seal of his childhood. In this closed secret facility, she could not even go out, unable to feel the sunshine and colors of the outside world. What made her even more unbearable was that she had to constantly hear those stupid words from the S.H.I.E.L.D. science team. As she has high hopes and is determined to be the first person with IQ in the future, she can't accept that she has to work with a bunch of idiots. Their slow thinking made Valeria even wonder if they were the same species. Just like sapiens and Neanderthals. It's stupid. Working with these fools is to humiliate yourself. As news of the bad news floated like snowflakes, Valeria also understood that relying on these idiots was useless. Ever since she got enlightenment and answers from the pager left by Nick Fury. I may be able to build a device capable of broadcasting signals to the entire universe. These idiots can't be counted anymore. Being with them is undoubtedly self-destruction. She is struggling. Take revenge. Soon, after researching this black technology pager, she truly created a signal launching device that broadcasts to the entire universe. The radio wave is amplified by the sun, the repeater, and the signal will continue to increase and be transmitted to the universe. However, limited by the technology in hand, the transmitted signal can only reach dozens of light years away, but this is enough. Valeria was satisfied with her invention. This is the gap between her and those idiots. She wants to carry rescue soldiers from the universe, call in the true existence of terror, and completely strangle the number one mutant. The response signal is very fast. Soon, a vague, hoarse and indistinguishable speech gradually became audible, as if the other party's alien speech had been completely transformed. Turn off the signal immediately, otherwise the interstellar coordinates of your entire Earth will be completely exposed, which will bring you extinction. Valeria was very surprised, but the other party's words just poured cold water on the top of his head. Even if she didn't see the other person's face in person, she could feel a cold chill for some reason, and the extremely thick bloody smell filled her nose. What kind of monster is this? After countless distant light years, can people feel the horrible killing intent? Valeria immediately realized that he was in contact with a terrifying existence outside the universe. Surprise. But I feel terrified. But when she thinks of the already obscure life, she is full of firmness. The girl pondered for a while, and said directly, "My civilization has already fallen, don't hesitate, please come here to replace us and destroy us." Since then, this signal device has some malfunctions. Valeria frowned, and immediately began to repair, and then to make sure that her words had been conveyed, she repeated the previous words again. At last, a cold and helpless word came from the other side. "I understand. The communication between the two has since ended." Valeria was annoyed for a while, whether this was promised or not. Such ambiguous words made her uncertain, so she simply kept turning on the signal transmitter to find other universes. And in this way, Captain Marvel Carol intercepted this message. She was extremely furious, with a serious expression, and braved the golden flames of her body and swooped towards a secret facility on the west coast. Boom! The gate of the facility that could easily resist the impact of a nuclear bomb was knocked out of a huge pit. Accompanied by the roar of energy, the door was completely blasted open. Enemy attack. The SHIELD personnel were shocked. At least the vast majority of SHIELD elites have already been hidden in the entire base facility. Who would have thought that the enemy would just hit the red heart and suddenly hit the door? No, it's her, our rescuer. Agent Collison reacted at the first moment. Isn't the figure of this heroic lady just the woman who was born in the last century and saved the Earth directly? But Carol didn't pay attention to him at all, following the fluctuation of the signal emission, and ignoring the horror of the people around him. He just braved the golden light and broke into the facility directly. Boom! As soon as she stepped on her footsteps, the ground cast by the metal steel layer suddenly collapsed, and Carol broke into the second underground floor in a violent way. And in the house that collapsed in front of him was the bedroom where Valeria lived. She was taken aback. What the hell did you do? Carol directly grabbed a signal transmitter on the desk in the bedroom, and stared at each other angrily. Valeria suddenly realized that what she had done had been exposed. However, her face was stubborn at this time, and there was no hint of confession. Snapped. Carol was so angry that she slapped the girl's face like this. Even with too much strength reduced, this slap still slapped the girl from the chair to the ground. Diaresis, do you dare to hit me? Valeria touched her face and said with hatred in her eyes. But she suddenly woke up. Ha ha! She burst into laughter, and even cried with joy. Smart as she naturally understands that she succeeded. I succeeded, right, you. Captain Marvel Carol gritted her teeth, and if it weren't for her temper, she would even kill him completely. Do you know what you did? Do you want the Earth to disappear from now on? If not, the stubborn little girl sneered all over her face, seeing the utopian power growing stronger, and such a world should completely disappear. Whatever you do with me, I know everyone is finished anyway. In the end, I just want to know, who is that guy who responded? Extraterrestrial. In the vast expanse of space, a figure standing on a silver gliding board silently glanced at a galaxy that was about to collapse and shatter in front of him, and the planet devourer he served began to feast on it. And as a servant, one of the 4 ambassadors under the Star Devourer's banner, he is about to find the galaxy that will be devoured in the next period for his master. This is a difficult decision. There is even some anxiety in his heart. If it were not for the safety of his home star, he would never continue to be a navigator. But, fortunately, a creature in a galaxy actively sought self-destruction. Maybe if such a sinful planet is eliminated, the soul of the silver glider will feel better. This moment, he just waited silently. Soon after destroying the galaxies along the way, he will lead the way directly to the solar system as a navigator. Chapter 91. Wow! In the secret facility in front of him, an uproar continued to sound. Because Captain Marvel Carol has just made all the answers public. Life that has been born before the Big Bang, a planet devourer known as one of the 5 gods. Soon, one of his 4 ambassadors, the Silver Glider, will arrive on Earth and lead them to Earth as a navigator. When the Earth collapses, will the solar system also be annihilated? These words really make people feel fantastic. Even agents who have come into contact with too many supernatural forces feel a little absurd and nonsense about this. Stop talking nonsense. You woman is of unknown origin, maybe it was sent by the number 1 mutant. Some people questioned, but soon he was completely killed by the lacing beam in Carol's hands. In extraordinary times, I am not polite to you either. No one thought that this brave blonde lady would violently kill a person under a disagreement. Unknown origins. It is impossible to identify the identity of the other party at all. Everyone was directly vigilant for a while, and pointed their weapons at each other. Hey, stop, she is the person Chief Nick Fury is looking for. Agent Collison is the only person who can prove the identity of the opponent. However, among the West Coast Avengers, the superhero named Demolition Man was unconvinced and went forward to provoke him, but he quickly ushered in defeat, and his neck was broken. The technique is clean and neat. It fully demonstrated the demeanor of the most powerful woman on the surface at this moment. Everything is over. Your endless war has come to an end. Carol said categorically. But mutant, no, all I have seen are the persecution of mutants. Just now, the mutants in a city were completely wiped out by the fog of Terrigen, not to mention the sentry robot you invented. Carol said coldly. Strictly speaking, your offspring may all be mutants, and you may all have the invisible X gene in your head. The gap between the two races is not as big as you think. This statement undoubtedly shows that the two parties are urged to completely mediate. What about the mutant number 1? Director Hill was a little unconvinced. Looking at this beautiful and overly blonde woman, she really didn't want all her efforts to be completely abandoned. I already know roughly what happened. Through the extraterrestrial wrist, Carol naturally learned what happened recently. Nick Fury certainly didn't send a signal for the creature-modified warrior with Carrie's gene. It's for the former number 1 mutant. The antecedent of the whole thing is entirely an artificially brewed tragedy. Why can't you conduct a true fair trial in a sincere manner? Cleverness is mistaken by cleverness. In the end, it was the annihilation of the Fantastic Four, and even the collapse of S.H.I.E.L.D. Bureau. Compared with the crisis that you are causing now, his crime is not even 100 millionth of yours. Do you know why this place will fall in a month, maybe half a year? Earth, galaxies, all gone. Carol spoke coldly. Valeria, who was already under control, just smiled, without a trace of regret in her eyes. This scene made Carol completely anxious, and she swallowed abruptly, which completely depressed the mind to kill her. People around the world should know what you just did. Advertisement. It's also time for everyone to prepare for the disaster of the Earth's annihilation. At the same moment, on the battlefield full of gunpowder, Su Chen still doesn't know what Captain Marvel Carol's arrival means. It is also not clear that a little girl with a super IQ told a silver glider outside the universe the coordinates of an Earth civilization. Sinful mankind awaits annihilation from the devourers of the planet. At this time, Su Chen just killed the inhuman Emperor Black Bat King, and since then he has slightly diminished the resentment in his heart. The Black Bat King was killed by a headshot with his fists. This is something that I can't even imagine. The Inhumans had not had time to get out of the Earth from the paradise on the back of the moon, and it ushered in a sad scene. Unwilling, resentful, even the sense of fear came to Maximus' mind. Wow, the big dog Tetanus also showed a trace of irritation. It was originally a person, but it turned into a dog in the transformation of Terrigen's crystal. However, being a member of the royal family and his terrifying ability to transmit hard electricity still wouldn't be underestimated and contemptuous. But Tetanus, who has always been arrogant, still didn't realize that he should race against time to leave completely. When Su Chen had solved the Black Bat King, a pair of cold eyes swept towards the two surviving Inhumans members. They just started to leave. Wow, a muffled cry came from the mouth of Tetanus. An extremely surging psychic wave fell in his head. It had a certain psychic resistance, but still felt pain, so that his ability to transmit the hard electricity did not fully work. Only its figure disappeared. The volatility acting on Maximus was interrupted by containment. In this electric light flint, it was a long and slender figure far away that dragged out the afterimages. As if a swift thunder rushed in front of him, Su Chen raised his right hand and puffed through the body of the person in front of him. Ah! Maximus vomited a mouthful of blood. As a psychic ability person, after the opponent's psychic immunity, he has no chance of winning at all. At this time, his heart was completely penetrated by Su Chen's arm. If you can run, the monk can't run the temple. I will visit the city of Atalan on the far side of the moon sooner or later. Since then, another member of the alien race was killed. After solving these alien races, Su Chen's figure disappeared completely under the boundless ripples. When he returned to the Sanqui building of S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, the first urging order was for his subordinates to create a stable space channel for the universe Rubik's Cube as soon as possible. It is reported that Dr. Eric, a physicist and astronomer, has this knowledge. Depending on the element can be used as a stabilizer, so that the generated spatial fluctuations are very stable. In addition to such a news, the White Queen Emma also brought him a great news. But at this time, a global news that is hard to tell whether it is good or bad came. Global live broadcast. Valeria and some related S.H.I.E.L.D. personnel have all been arrested. They committed crimes against the Earth and against humanity. The enemies of the utopian camp collapsed inexplicably at this moment. But what followed was a global panic. Because the Earth is about to usher in its end. The remnant forces of S.H.I.E.L.D. have ushered in a dramatic collapse. It's something that no one thought of. Nick Fury originally intended to let the most powerful woman on the surface come to preside over the overall situation. But who would have thought that it was because Valeria's signal to the entire universe was completely intercepted by the Star Devourer, and a brand new change was ushered in. Incoming alien invasion. Annihilation. What a joke is this? S.H.I.E.L.D., there are more than successes than failures, what are they doing? Impossible. Both the star-devouring messenger and the alien invasion are fabricated and must be a utopian conspiracy. The people of the world yelled at this. Even the powerful personnel of S.H.I.E.L.D. were afraid of this woman's resolute behavior. Because Captain Marvel Carol didn't contact any media reporters at all, just relying on the crushing extraterrestrial technology advantages, he directly hacked into the global TV stations and media live broadcasts. In order to make human beings feel desperate, she adjusted the watch equipment in her wrist and projected a huge holographic virtual impression directly above the Earth. It was an alien city-state not knowing how many light years away, but on that day they ushered in a terrifying deity that was supported between heaven and earth. The energy he spits out at will is enough to completely turn the surface in front of him into ruins. The power he swallowed in a big mouth even made the matter and energy of half of the planet completely detached from the ground. The image is extremely real, enough to make people feel the despair of the people of that alien city-state. The power of the planet devourer can also peep into it. All human beings realized that their troubles might really be coming. Trust me, because this is not the first time I have dealt with an alien invasion. Captain Marvel Carol has shown confidence in front of people all over the world. It was hackers who hacked into global TV stations, and they played holographic projections above the surface. All kinds of extraordinary methods were enough to make people have to believe what the woman said. Panic suddenly filled. Even the utopian forces who have just struggled for the future feel a little confused. Was it all in the end? Compared to other mutants who are caught in complex emotions. Yorkton City. In this most majestic and tall landmark building, the topmost area, Su Chen is sitting on a sofa at the moment, but he smiles with interest. Emma, your news came very timely. Knowing that the Earth is about to fall into a crisis of extinction, Su Chen, who has been regarded as the king of mutants, seems very stable at this moment. Although it was still a 13-year-old boy. But for the first time I lost control of my emotions, and when I came to this city suddenly, I was a little shocked and panicked when facing various things. Now that he has been baptized by various major events, Su Chen at this age has become more sophisticated and stable, and the childishness on his face has long since disappeared. After the establishment of the Utopia camp, the whole person even revealed a sense of superiority. Dr. Zhao Hailun must control it. I need her research. Su Chen said solemnly. I have sent a lot of elite changers to protect her mansion. In the phone call just now, after learning that the end of the Earth is coming, I am more willing to serve us. White Queen Emma said. Very good. Su Chen regarded it as a very important move. The reason why he took it so seriously was because this young Korean female Dr. Zhao Hailun discovered how to awaken the X-gene medicine in the field of biological genes. Thinking about it carefully, it doesn't feel weird. After all, various experimental models of X-gene inhibitors are circulating in major laboratories in this world. Just the Snowfield experiment base where Su Chen was imprisoned had a poisonous mist in it. There is suppression, and suppression of X-gene expression. Naturally, there should be stimuli from it. Scientists in the past may not dare to study due to discrimination or even upper-level blockade. In the past, Magneto has been involved in this field, trying to make all senior personnel into mutants, but unfortunately, the gene stimulation program completely failed. And now, the appearance of this female doctor gave Su Chen a great surprise. Is the specific drug experiment stable? Stability. Emma the White Queen nodded. Very good. The ambition pervading Su Chen's heart has made him realize that his opportunity has arrived. That Ms. Captain Marvel will definitely come to negotiate. Her series of actions undoubtedly indicate that we must maintain the peace of the Earth and integrate all the forces. There was a hint of worry in Emma's eyes. For a cosmic being born on the Earth, it is inevitable that there are some scruples and worries in his heart. Soon, this opportunity for negotiation soon came. Advertisement. Not long after the end of the global live broadcast, rushing late into the night, a lady bathed in golden light turned into a bright golden streamer and circled the Caesars building. At last, her golden swaying chinly figure just appeared outside the floor-to-ceiling windows on the top floor. Under a weird energy fluctuation, Carol's figure penetrated like transparent. This amazing performance made Emma the White Queen a little nervous. She squeezed her fist. She didn't even dare to give birth to the idea of peeping at the other party with the power of her heart. Just witnessing this woman bathed in golden light made people feel extremely stressful. Emma can't even use her psychic energy to soothe herself. The #1 mutant, famous for not meeting. Carol had obviously finished reading all the information about this teenager. A hint of surprise suddenly appeared in her eyes, but she did not expect that the 13-year-old boy who looked a little hysterical in the previous global live broadcast and looked like a rebellious teenager. At this moment, it seemed very calm. But no wonder. This is the 13-year-old king of mutants, and now all mutants in the world basically worship him as their master. In other words, he is the master of global mutants. So you just brought my enemy to justice. Don't you wonder if I will agree? Su Chen on the sofa has no fear at all. He knew that this woman was extremely majestic just by revealing her energy, as if she contained a star. Her energy was infinite, and it was difficult to see how much power was hidden behind her. But Su Chen's infinitely evolved physique is the best support. Of course, if this woman is not stupid and really understands herself, she won't attack rashly. You are much smarter than I thought. Carol was also very surprised by the sense of stability the boy showed. In her heart, she guessed to some extent that the genes of evolution had already promoted the development of his brain. The calm and composure Wei alone was no longer like a 13-year-old boy. Compared to the expected negotiation, it is a bit more difficult. Not to mention that there is a lady of the mind department who is trying to keep thinking beside him, acting as a staff member. Don't go around in circles. Su Chen was too lazy to greet him, and he didn't signal the other party to take a seat. Just because of the golden light of the other party, he was afraid that when the other party sat down, he would burn down the sofa where his sister Susan liked to stand on it. You are willing to mediate the fight between our two sides. I can only agree to 3 conditions. First, all S.H.I.E.L.D. agencies involved in the design of the Expelling Planet plan, including a series of survivors who had previously murdered me by the military, all started with the death penalty. This is the least respect for me. Su Chen said that. He paused here, and even had a cup of tea if he was interested. This is obviously to give the other party time to think. If the other party can't even agree to this, naturally you don't need to listen to the following 2 conditions. I promise, I will implement it all later. Captain Marvel. Carol pondered for a while and nodded directly. In order to show her sincerity, she even added, in order to express the wrongs and slander against you, I will even let the legal staff thoroughly clean up all charges for you. Supreme, the other party does not seem to have much confidence in facing the planet devourer. At this time, Emma, the White Queen, passed the words to Su Chen's mind with the fluctuation of her heart and mind. Emma, the Chief of Internal Affairs, did act as a staff member. After all, she had foreseen Carol's personal visit, and Su Chen himself was not a self-serving person. He knew that he was young and had limited experience, so he naturally had a lack of perspective on things. So Emma is a good complement to this. Hear the words. Su Chen laughed. His unabashed smile showed his self-confidence, why this powerful Captain Marvel. Carol wanted to win him over. It's nothing more than the coming Earth annihilation crisis. She herself is not very sure about it. After learning that his infinite evolutionary genes had crushed the planet's Avengers, the Fantastic Four and other superheroes, he suddenly realized that he might be the last line of safety on the planet. Therefore, Su Chen has understood the next two requirements at this moment, and the other party will definitely agree. The second point is that the Utopia organization will annex all Sentry robotics to show respect for all mutants in the world. The third point is that it is not allowed to refuse all human beings to receive awakening drugs that stimulate the X gene. Su Chen didn't sell it at the end, and directly stated the last two requirements. Hear the words. Carol didn't get angry and laughed instead, and suddenly realized that this was a way of blackmailing herself. I can promise you both of the first 2 points. But the third point, do you treat me as an idiot? It seems that you not only want to be the master of all mutants, but now you want to be the master of all the people on the Earth, and become the master of the Earth. Facing the threat of doomsday and alien invasion, there is such a technology to awaken the X gene. Just imagine how many potential X gene humans will be stimulated and modified. In this way, the forces of Utopia will encompass the whole world and completely annex all human beings. The ambition of this kid is really too big. Mountain. Faced with the threat of a planetary devourer, it is unknown that humans with potentially invisible X genes are willing to become mutants. Because in this crisis, it is a strength and a guarantee. To be honest, if the opposite is not the king of mutants. Faced with such a plan that can intensify the X gene of others and completely awaken the supernatural power, Captain Marvel Carol welcomes it with his hands. But the problem is that the identity of the other party is the Supreme Utopian Organization. It is a newly emerged, globally recognized king of mutants. The number of mutants under its utopia now exceeds 6 figures. If more and more recessive genes are allowed to become mutants, then this number will skyrocket exponentially. This is not a joke. Although Captain Marvel Carol cannot analyze how many humans have the invisible X gene. But from the fact that Terrigen's fog has caused many human deaths, and the case where the Sentry robot may even determine that humans are mutants, she is quite sure that this potential number is very large. This is really the lion's mouth open. Carol was resentful and did not conceal his dissatisfaction. In fact, Su Chen doesn't know how many potential mutants there are. But he doesn't care. Many mutants of Utopia have normal parents. This shows that mutants and humans have no reproductive isolation at all, and they are not two species with a clear separation. So once this voluntary reform plan is promoted, according to the White Queen Emma, with the increasing number of mutants, marriage with normal people will make their offspring become potential mutants. In the end, the replacement of normal people on the entire planet may not take many years. At that time, there would be no so-called discrimination against mutants. Nor will innocent children be chased around and become the pitiful sight of experimental guinea pigs. Believe our Trask, the inventor of the Sentry robot, once quoted Professor X's words that sapiens, which symbolize mutants, will replace Neanderthals, which symbolize normal people. Now that this plan is promoted, it is really possible to create this grand scene. If you can't agree, then we have nothing to say. Su Chen gave his bottom line just like that, pressing harder every step of the way. You really don't hide your ambition. It's good. I have never seen a 13-year-old boy with such ambition. Carol sneered. Then have you seen a 13-year-old boy who was scrambled by various experimental bases to become an experimental mouse? Su Chen's retort made Carol speechless. His attitude also shows that he has eaten the other party. Carol was a little worried. Perhaps the unknown Gene X medicine does not necessarily have such a magical effect. What's more, the Earth is ushering in a race change, which must also be something in the future. But the arrival of the planet devourer is now. Maybe a month later, maybe half a year later, everything depends on the silver glider who leads the star-swallowing messenger. If you don't grasp the present, let alone focus on the future. He has this ambition, and he will surely exert his great power in the coming crisis of Planet Devourer. Call. Bathed in golden light, Captain Marvel reveals a sigh of divinity. It is rare to breathe out. I promise you. The two have since reached a preliminary verbal agreement. Carol thought of how to weaken the symbol of mutants, that is, to change the name of mutants to New Humans, to weaken the influence of the King of Mutants. But then I thought about it again, if you really want to rely on the other party to solve the planet devourer, then what is the use of not changing the name? At that time, the influence of the other party will be so great. The power will become so strong that I don't know how much. For a while, Carol felt a little worried, but he didn't know if he was raising a tiger. Her heart can only hope that the 13-year-old boy can change his mind. After all the grievances are completely cleared, she will no longer act so persistently and can let go of some of the resentment in her heart. Maybe after solving the planet devourer, can he indulge in the joy of being a savior and become an excellent superhero in the future? An unrealistic fantasy seemed to emerge in Carol's mind. The reason is such a compromise. But it is because although her own strength is very strong, her strength on the bright side can definitely crush her opponents, but before that, this Su Chen faced many enemies that were stronger than her strength on the bright side. But a series of dry bones have cast his glory. His infinitely evolving physique is really incomprehensible. If you really want to conflict with the other party, then you might be able to catalyze the birth of a more terrifying existence. There is no way. Facing the threat of the planet devours, he might have to drink poison to quench his thirst. Let's save the Earth first. Late at night, it was still on the top floor of the Caesars building in Yorkton. After Carol left, Su Chen sat on the sofa and continued to slowly drink the remaining tea. She is eager for me to let go of my stubbornness, and when a teacher sees it as a teacher to hand in homework on time, take the exam for a good baby with good grades. Su Chen said, neither salty nor indifferent. Although the White Queen Emma didn't dare to use telepathy, she naturally understood Carol's inner thoughts. The Earth Woman haunted her body with golden light, as if she were a golden god, but her tone and expression still betrayed some of her thoughts. However, Emma naturally did not dare to say these words in front of the Supreme. How the Supreme will decide next is his decision alone, and Emma doesn't dare to interfere. Just follow the determined plan, no need to change. Su Chen said coldly. Yes, Supreme. A faint smile appeared on Emma's delicate face. The previous plan remains unchanged. That means constructing a wormhole plan, preparing for an ultra-long distance leap to conquer the Asgard god realm, and even the city of Atlan on the back of the moon will not be changed due to all changes. Su Chen drank tea. It's not that he can't let go of the obsession. It's because once some things become black, they can't be turned around again. He can't be a generous person. If you were a little more generous at that time, and tame a little like a lamb, I'm afraid I wouldn't be awakened, and I will be reduced to a fish that has been on the chopping board until now. I want more people to be implicated, let the people do it. Su Chen gave the order. Emma nodded. At this moment, she really witnessed the growth of a teenager, and an amazing careerist began to use his brain power beyond his fists. Captain Marvel Carol was a person of the last century, but after possessing an extremely majestic cosmic energy and being able to communicate with a small universe in her body, her age seems to have stayed at 23 or 4 years old. However, if you want to control the gradual restoration of order, you will face the Earth under the threat of doomsday. Naturally, she can't show the appearance of a blonde sweetheart. In order to shock people's hearts and win over and unite more power, she just keeps haunting the golden fluctuations. Even if she maintains this energy body mode 24 hours a day, it will not make her feel tired. It has to be said that Carol, bathed in golden luster, is indeed like a golden god, which is extremely convincing, and his strength can easily suppress a bunch of resistance forces. What's even more exaggerated is that the strongest lady on the surface who has been in the universe for many years brought an alien spacecraft that looks like a sword blade from nowhere. From this moment on, an organization called the Heaven Sword Bureau was born. Naturally, the Tianjian Bureau was not fabricated. It's even mentioned in the comics. Known as the Intellectual World Observation and Response Bureau, its main purpose is to conduct extraterrestrial observations, resolve interstellar disputes, and deal with matters such as alien invasion. This is obviously similar in nature to S.H.I.E.L.D., but it is obviously an external contact. No matter how, the establishment of the Heavenly Sword Bureau banned the S.H.I.E.L.D. Bureau organization that had completely existed in name only. Carol also found 1 or 2 friends from the aliens, and began a recruitment operation in the Earth. Order began to restore. The mutants of the Utopian camp have also begun to curb their offensive. Even Su Chen's wrongdoing in the past was thoroughly cleaned up under Carol's leadership. In addition, the deceased General Stryker, including the SHIELD personnel who designed the court, and the superheroes implicated were all charged. Director Hill, the organizer of the negative resistance, was arrested in this way. The most serious one is Valeria, the little girl who directly endangers the Earth and is accused of crimes against humanity. In this regard, many superheroes and ordinary people became dissatisfied and protested Carol's behavior. That extreme mutant was just let go. What about the crime of the king of mutants for harm? Everyone is dissatisfied. Others expressed sympathy and pity. Because a 13-year-old boy was listed for all crimes by those dirty institutions, the story of being forced to go nowhere is really touching. Therefore, many humans have always supported his resistance behavior. It is not him who is wrong. It's this world. If not for discrimination and injustice. If it wasn't for the filthy accusation framed. If it weren't for General Stryker, the culprit who brewed all evil. Who would force him to this step? Since Hulk has gone astray and can become an Avenger, why can't he be the savior? Yes, I heard that the two agents Hawkeye and Black Widow were not very clean in the past. The Ghost knows what dirty things they have done secretly. Even the Stark Group used to sell arms. Think about how many people will die. Everyone is right. He's still a 13-year-old kid. Enough, do you have to force a little boy who is still in school at this age to bear? The people who overflowed with the heart of the Virgin protested against injustice for Su Chen. We need his power. He can also be a superhero. Advertisement. Many people are even shouting for it under the serious threat of the planet devourer. Perhaps only the #1 mutant who overpowers all superheroes can lead everyone out in the future Earth apocalyptic crisis. Crazy, crazy, everyone is crazy. After a little boy saw the message on the forum, he suddenly cursed. Despair, despair. The flexible fingers kept touching the sensor screen of the phone, and Franklin Richards cursed. Seeing the words of support for Su Chen on the internet, his heart collapsed. Why sacrificed my parents, a lot of superheroes, facing the threat of doomsday? That sinful, blood-filled guy has almost become the savior of the world. Are you crazy? That's the one who killed the Fantastic Four. Many deaths of superheroes have something to do with him. But soon someone replied and ridiculed. HMPH, how about superheroes? Because they were investigated and arrested, they released all the super criminals in the superpower prison in order to vent their anger. Yeah, this is too despicable. This person is talking about recent events. It is said that after the new director of SHIELD, Hill and a large number of agents were arrested, some people, in order to avenge the Sky Sword Bureau, completely released the super criminal under custody to harm the world. No, this is a scourge of planting. This is done by secretly sent by the top mutants. Franklin Richards yelled, and immediately went directly to the netizen. Although a group of SHIELD cadres were arrested, because he was young and did not participate in any incidents, naturally he and his sister Valeria would not be arrested. However, after learning that his strength seemed a bit extraordinary, he was subject to supervision for a change of direction. He couldn't bear it naturally, and directly used his superpower to easily shuttle through the space and leave completely. The seal from his childhood was gradually cracked, and his strength also increased every moment. Shuttle space. Read motivation. Flight. Even. The ability to predict. Franklin even predicted for this that those supervillains who released the rafts and mansions of the 4 black technology prisons were secretly attacked by mutants who could change their disguise. And because the Hydra has long been exposed. A pot of dirty water just poured in, and a lot of related superheroes and SHIELD agents in the past were even more implicated, and they were completely arrested and killed. This is a conspiracy. That nasty mutant #1 hasn't gotten better at all. He is very cunning, he has become smarter, and he knows how to use his head to secretly make people do things. Don't be deceived. Franklin's flexible fingers immediately tapped a series of words on the phone. Hee, no matter what people do, they are no better than that little girl who sold our Earth. The evidence is solid, anti-human and anti-world, it's scumbag. Single quote. Seeing these words, Franklin, the older brother, blushed with tears, and he deleted the typed words. These words are indeed facts. Compared with Su Chen, his sister has done countless times too much. But can't you force it? Thinking of his dead parents and his sister who committed heinous crimes, his childish face gradually began to twist. This world might as well just be ruined like this. Next second, Franklin, whose mind was gradually degenerating and blackening, spewed a vast wave of light from his body, and a bright light continued to magnify, engulfing the entire city in an instant. Boom! The incomparable light wave swallowed a city, and this shocking discovery immediately attracted the attention of the headquarters of the Heavenly Sword Bureau. Outside of low Earth orbit, this sword-like alien spacecraft captured a shocking energy wave erupting from the surface in real time. Numerical report. It is suspected to be Franklin Richards. The target is very dangerous, his emotions are out of control, and his abilities may be somewhat out of control. The new staff quickly fed back the information to Carol. This is too exaggerated. The scale of the explosion caused by that guy is probably even more exaggerated than the nuclear explosion. The latest superheroes who were drawn over looked at each other. I can't imagine that this will be their first mission. However, Captain Marvel and Carol will naturally not embarrass them. Compared with the out-of-control Franklin, these people are simply not opponents at all. I will deal with it myself. You go first to catch all those super criminals who escaped from prison. Carol ordered. Soon, a chinly figure with a golden ray of light suddenly broke through the Earth's atmosphere from outside the spacecraft like a meteor from the sky, and quickly reached the ground on the surface of the explosion. Boom! The wanton blast of invisible waves of horror destroyed a building. Under this terrifying light wave, the ground broke and the figure evaporated instantly. Look at what I did. Franklin Richards suddenly covered his headache forehead. After the imprisonment of the seal was removed from the body, his strength was rising all the time, and his strength level continued to improve. But to deal with the number 1 mutant with unlimited evolution. Not enough. He must have enough power to crush his opponent without giving him a complete recovery, or even crush and grind one of his cells. Otherwise, everything will only promote the continuous evolution of the opponent. His sanity prevented him from doing it the first time. But seeing the super criminal who killed his parents was praised by a lot of netizens as the future savior, his heart collapsed. If there was no such mutant number 1, he would still live happily with his sister and family. Today, everything is ruined. Since only slaughter and destruction can promote faster evolution, well, let me retake your path of blackening. Let the world be completely destroyed. Everything here is no longer worthy of my nostalgia. Before the planet devourer arrives, let me destroy this place in advance. This is all you forced me. Looking at the beating online messages in the mobile forum, Franklin Richards sneered and smashed the phone completely. At this time, just outside the distant starry sky greeted a flying golden meteor. See what you are doing. Carol was full of anger, bathed in golden light. At this moment, she had already moved to kill. It's you. Looking at the blonde figure who helped the abuser, Reed's son was rage even more. He hates this woman even more than Su Chen. If it weren't for her, so many superheroes and S.H.I.E.L.D. would not be implicated, and even deceased parents would be controversial. If it weren't for her, it wouldn't allow the mutant number 1 to completely gain power. Woman, die to me. At this moment, the son of Reed felt that every cell in his body was cheering, and this kind of arbitrary attack method really accelerated his progress. Advertisement. Whoosh. A beam of light bursting from his fingertips turned into a railgun, completely roaring the sky, covering the figure of the hateful woman. Honor. Under a sullen curse, Captain Marvel Carrollton became wary, and the golden light waves suddenly released by her hands shattered the incoming light, and fell to the ground in a crushing posture. Franklin couldn't think of this woman's attacking method being so overbearing, and the majestic energy in it was beyond his imagination. In one thought, it was completely teleported for a certain distance with a subtle deviation. Boom! The Earth was instantly bombarded by the shocking team and exploded into a bottomless pit. Ah! The lingering heart of Frank Clinton realized that the horror of this woman was especially true of the number 1 mutant, and the explosive energy output from her gestures gave people a sense of destruction. The sanity of Reed's son seemed to return all of a sudden, and the sense of fear suddenly appeared on his face. But when he thought of the woman in front of him helping the mutant number 1, the anger suddenly rose in his heart. Die to me. Under the blackening, his chestnut hair slowly hung upside down in the invisible fluctuations, and the whole clothes made a sound of hunting. Expulsion. He roared, his mind prying open a space vortex door behind the shocking team in a mysterious way. Ha! The terrifying power of devouring thus rises from this vortex space. Not only that, but the space structure around Carol shocked suddenly collapsed, and in a blink of an eye, it turned into a terrifying black hole and swallowed it. In such a moment, Carol was actually successfully expelled from the earth by him. Quote. Diaresis if the father's plan at that time can be successful. The son of Reed recalled the change suddenly. It was almost impossible to completely drive the opponent out of the earth. Unfortunately, still failed. I will make up for the lesson of failure. At this moment, he felt that he was extremely powerful, and he was already able to face the number 1 mutant. Suddenly, the instinctive warning sign told him that a space in front of him had collapsed, but it was Captain Marvel Carroll who had been expelled to return in this way. As a last resort, Reed's son has realized that he is unlikely to be an opponent. Without thinking about anything, he completely shuttled through the empty, space with a single thought, and completely disappeared in front of him. He is looking for the number 1 mutant directly on the line. Yorkton City. Outside the towering and tall Caesar building, the blue sky suddenly ushered in the ripples of space, and the figure of Reed's son instantly shuttled. He stepped on the void and overlooked the building. At this moment, he sneered arrogantly, and put on the hood of his sweater with both hands, with a pair of headphones hanging around his neck, like a frustrated Su Chen imitator. The mutant number 1 will come out and die. The blackened son of Reed was full of cool twitching expressions. At this moment, his words resounded like thunder in the sky, resounding throughout the city. That's right, he wants to completely expel this guy's ears under the witness of the whole city. Just like the other party came to the court in the global live broadcast at that time, killing a lot of superheroes. The mutant number 1 will come out and die. The words of Reed's son resounded like thunder over the entire Yorkton city. The majesty and prestige resounded throughout the world. His words seemed to use some kind of mental fluctuations, so that they fell on everyone's ears so clearly and unmistakably. How is this going? Oh my God, is this someone provoking the mutant number 1? At this moment, the urban residents of Yorkton suddenly felt it, and looked up directly at the sky. The first time they could see outside the towering Caesar's building, there was a young figure stepping on the void and berating the number 1 mutant. Is he crazy? Dare to challenge the number 1 mutant? This is simply not knowing how high the sky is. Dare to provoke Utopia Supreme, and wait to die. Words from below just spread from the ground. The sound of criticism, sarcasm, and ridicule fell on the ears of Reed's son. After all, this is within the sphere of influence of the utopian camp, so that the strength of the ridicule is very strong. His face sneered more and more. Very good. Even if you all don't look down on me, then I will kill your number 1 mutant in full view, and let you feel what despair is. But at that moment, the sarcastic words underneath were suddenly relieved, and bursts of cheers broke out. Come on, the number 1 mutant is coming out to challenge. Supreme, let the guy who offended the mutant king go to hell. The cries of carnival just rushed one after another, like waves, one wave after another. The son of Reed who has been criticized and ridiculed more than just now. Su Chen in front of him walked out of the ripples of space and surpassed the sky above the city, and it ushered in the shouts and revelry of the whole people. This is the belief of mutants and the cornerstone of their rise. It is a leader who will never forget. Under the sound of such a carnival, the face of Reed's son became more and more distorted. Vaguely, a childish face became a bit hideous, and the devil's side in his mind made his heart degenerate. Are you imitating me? Su Chen's cold eyes fell towards the figure who was above the air in the distance. The upper body sweater and the matching hood just covered her head, and an untrimmed bangs just covered her eyes. Even if she was dressed like this, she also had a pair of earphones hung around her neck. Such behavior is indeed dressed like Su Chen who first arrived in this city. He also wore this suit when the nuclear explosion was broadcast live around the world that day. It's just that he is now in a casual white shirt, and his sleeves are still specially customized, and he reveals the majesty of a superior. He is no longer the helpless boy who fights with a lone wolf. It is the leader in charge of a huge mutant power. Image and temperament, and behavior and dress are another change. Humph! Seeing the appearance of the Lord, the son of Reed gritted his teeth bitterly, and the killing intent in his eyes was completely concealed. Imitate you. That's right, I just want to repeat your old path in your blackened way. If it were not for the court tragedy, after the death of the parents. To be honest, in the past, he did admire such a young man who was not a few years older than himself and dared to fight for his own interests in the global live broadcast. Because it's so cool, so handsome. But everything has changed. I will kill you. He gritted his teeth. Then he said affirmatively in a very hateful way, word by word. Then, advertisement, killing your sister. At last, I want to completely destroy the city you are in, as well as all members of the Utopia. Stop talking. The son of Reed stirred up a terrifying force wave all over his body, and the invisible air current made one of his bangs constantly beating. Dead, he roared and immediately released his big move. Click. Su Chen's whole body space area suddenly filled with cracks, and the real structure collapsed, and a terrifying black hole was formed behind him, sweeping out an unparalleled attraction. This moment, it is as if there are a series of invisible giant hands constantly dragging Su Chen's back, trying to drag him into the black hole behind. Compared with the collapsed device last time, this man-made forced expulsion is indeed much stronger. It's a pity that the slender and thin figure is as stable as Mount Tai under the chaotic energy fluctuations. It is as if there is a huge anchor rooted in the world, making his figure stable and calm. It's this trick again. As Reed's son, I still don't give up, and I still want to expel me. Su Chen sneered. Spatial characteristics plus 100. This moment. There were extremely surging spatial ripples around him, and in just a moment, the black hole behind him was completely closed, and all the collapsed reality structures were repaired. This is too easy. Understatement, it was so easy to resolve. This, the son of Reed didn't expect the other party to respond so easily and freely. Although he knew that this expulsion did not necessarily work, but Captain Marvel Carroll, his response was too easy. You seem to have overlooked one thing. That is, I can not only evolve under external stimuli. External stimuli will only speed up the process of evolution, so as to quickly form a means of restraint. And his own genes are evolving all the time. Su Chen one day later will always be stronger than himself one day ago. Coincidentally, my understanding of space is improving every day. There is no emotional fluctuation on Su Chen's extremely cold face. He stretched his right hand to the void next to him, and saw that his entire arm was caught in the ripples of the water ripples slowly rolling. Soon, the son of Reed in the distance felt a little bit, and suddenly found that his back was suddenly caught with a huge force. No way, he never thought that he would be caught by his opponent like this. What? With a cry of pain, the entire figure of Reed's son poured into the space behind the ripples. Then, in this way, Su Chen's right hand grabbed him from the void ripples next to him. I didn't expect it. Su Chen firmly controlled his opponent in an instant. His expression was cold and murderous. In this life, he hates others threatening himself with his family. He had already remembered the words of the son of Reed just now. Click. He clenched his fist with the other hand, and directly bombarded this guy's head with the violent energy fluctuations. The son of Reed had no room for resistance at all, and he had never imagined that there would be such a tricky means to directly catch him from far away to the front. Whoosh! Facing Su Chen's close punch, he couldn't hide. Boom! The majestic and terrifying incomparable force just smashed on his head, and the terrible power was vented out, blasting his head completely. Blood sputtered out completely, but at this time, the whole body of Reed's son also exploded a blood spring, like a stream of water, directly out of control, floating in the air to a distance. Then, like a conjure, the thick blood spring reorganized its physique again, first sketching a figure, and instantly showing the appearance of the son of Reed. Reorganization of flesh and blood. This is a superpower, he realized. Humph, don't think you are the most special in this world. He sneered. With this ability, he doesn't need to be too afraid of attacks from the opposite side. At this time, the son of the god Gund was so pale in his eyes, as if he was too imaginary and couldn't make a single blow. He directly used another killer move. Time travels. His will traveled for a long time in this way, and then went back to the past, trying to find the number 1 mutant that has not yet been awakened. This is not similar to the space-time shuttle ability of the Phantom Cat. Compared with the former, this ability of Reed's son can be mysterious. At least 8 years ago. This was the period when Reed's sons were still in their infants, but his will completely occupied an uncle's body. This uncle drove the lawnmower to handle the lawn of his house, and the Su Chen family house was directly opposite his mansion. At this moment, the young Su Chen is sitting in a small pedal car and happily playing in the aisle. Uncle, sneered, picked up a long serrated knife for trimming the flowers in the house, and walked towards the road. But at this moment, the young Su Chen pedaling a tricycle is no longer childish, and a will that does not belong to this time and space is also coming at this moment. Roll. Indifferent words were sent from a very young child. Ah! With a muffled cry, this strand of will of Reed's son was hit hard, and it was completely annihilated. Naturally, he could not think that Su Chen had already endured the test of time and space, and he already had a way to deal with it. Reed's son refused to accept it. The mysterious journey of time and space has started again. In reality, his eyes continued to turn white, holding back the pain of the traumatized soul, and rushing to the long river of time with another ray of will. At this moment, he wants to run towards the future. He must have a time of aging and vicissitudes in the future. Weakness. Maybe people in the future have already found it. He can even ask his future self for help. Impossible. The son of Reed found that the long river of time in the future was filled with a mist, just as if it involved the time and space of the number 1 mutant, it would not be allowed to be coveted and spied. The invisible future. He was dissatisfied. Hysterically, he let this wisp of will immerse in the mist of time, trying to detect the secret of heaven. It's a pity that what Ancient One couldn't do with time gems, naturally wouldn't let this guy succeed. What? The son of Reed's insistence on going his own way immediately caused this strand of will to be completely annihilated and dissipated. The tearing pain in the soul suddenly let him unlock the ability of time travel. Lost 2 soul wills one after another, and had a splitting headache, wishing to hit the wall to relieve the pain, but it was impossible to recover the heavy soul trauma through healing methods. But the most important thing is, in reality, he also ushered in the sad news of death. Relying on the superpower of reorganization of flesh and blood, he is somewhat unscrupulous. Unfortunately, what he ushered in was Su Chen's ultimate move. The terrifying invisible and mysterious wave interfered in reality, and Su Chen began to use this power to obliterate his opponent. At the same time, the power of mental fluctuations came out together, directly turning into a mental storm that swept across the opponent's mind. Reed's son grunted, and he was completely covered by a terrible fluctuation of reality at this moment. But the successive soul injuries made him temporarily lose the means to resist. Reed's son lowered his eyebrows, and suddenly found that his right hand had broken down continuously, without seeing a drop of blood, turning into a handful of the most essential molecules and dissipating into the air. Do you think this can solve me? The mysterious power of wantonly obliterating the lives of others is naturally powerful, but the more powerful opponents you encounter, the less effective it will be. Why does he know this? Because he is also an expert in reality tampering. However, at this time, the face of Reed's son changed, and he suddenly discovered that the invisible and traceless ability to modify reality was coming again without any signs. This time, he directly felt that the traces of his life had been erased a lot. He yelled in pain, because the son of Reed had already discovered that his sister, including many people who knew his existence, had lost his memory and influence. The student status recorded by the school in the past. The name on the workbook. All disappear without exception. The traces of his life in reality were wiped out by Su Chen. Go on like this. No one will remember him. The son of Reed gritted his teeth, restrained the pain in his soul, and began to shatter the fluctuations of reality that had spread to them one by one. The whole person's body is trying to escape through the space. But the invisible fluctuations rippling around disappeared. The shuttle failed. Can he do that? Reed's son screamed. This obviously comes from the number 1 mutant with more superb spatial ability blocking his ability to use the shuttle. Stop at all times. The son of Reed roared, trying to completely freeze the flow of time in this area directly under Rage's constant collapse. He already knew that he was not the enemy's opponent at all. Not to mention, Captain Marvel Carroll, who was provoked, must be almost here. He is going, but before parting, he will release the energy fluctuations accumulated in his body and completely destroy the city where the Utopia is stationed. But this is just wishful thinking. Wrong. Suddenly, the son of Reed discovered that his time stop ability hadn't worked at all. Impossible. Why? Pursuing it carefully with his will, he suddenly found that his ability to stop the time flow was enough to freeze the flow of time in the surrounding area, which had been wiped out by his opponent just now. This Even the son of Reed dare not imagine that this mutant number 1 has gone so far in the realm of reality tampering. He is really improving all the time. External stimulus is nothing more than a catalyst for giving the other party an evolutionary direction and accelerating this evolutionary process. Smart as him. After realizing this, his will suddenly became more and more depressed. The talent of the number 1 mutant is really more exaggerated than his own, and this is not an existence of an order of magnitude at all. What? Feeling the mysterious fluctuations that interfered with reality continued to hit, the son of Reed collapsed. He could no longer be slaughtered, and his instincts had already sensed that Captain Marvel, who was provoked at the beginning, was peeping nearby. Run! Run quickly! At this moment, he could not give birth to a trace of the will to continue fighting, and his head was full of the willingness to escape. After the space is blocked and unable to shuttle like this, then use your own super flying ability. With a little effort, you can quickly escape the battlefield and leave your opponents behind. But just as he was about to start flying, and the sound of the sonic boom burst into the air, waves of invisible thought power swept through, just as he plunged into a terrifying invisible quagmire. It was a startup speed faster than supersonic speed, so it couldn't fly for tens of meters, and it was wrapped in layers by the vast and intangible power of intangible thoughts. Are you really not letting me go? The son of Reed thoroughly raged. When he was pressed, he would burn the jade and the stone at most, holding the whole city together and destroying it. Su Chen, who was far above the sky, was full of indifference. His angular face didn't have too many mood swings at all. Death is your only result. No one can threaten his family. This guy has violated his bottom line. At the beginning, he dared to threaten him with his sister. Su Chen looked calm before him, but the killing intent in his heart was already filled. Even if it goes from heaven to earth, this guy will undoubtedly die. Feeling the incomparable killing intent in the already immovable body, Reed's son can only hold the mind of dying with a large number of mutants on the ground, ready to explode. Maybe he can completely reorganize his body with the help of surviving granular cells. What? But within 2 seconds, the son of Reed suddenly found himself stunned, as if completely in a daze, forgetting all the plans that were supposed to be executed. This moment, he suddenly realized it, but he discovered that the other party was constantly interfering with the mysterious fluctuations in reality. In addition to erasing the traces of his own existence and life itself, even his thoughts and memories were wiped out. You wiped out my thoughts. Otherwise, he should have completely blew himself up at this moment. Not good. At this time, the face of Reed's son changed, but he found that his body began to collapse on a large scale. Ended. Su Chen is too lazy to say something. He was full of anger and didn't know how many fluctuations that interfered with reality had been urged. Under the mysterious power that was constantly sweeping through, the son of Reed in front of him was finally unable to continue to resist under the severely wounded soul. At this moment, a horrible invisible force that interferes with reality came here. At this moment, the son of Reed only felt that his whole body began to collapse, and all traces of life existence began to be wiped out. Ah! Reed's son cursed secretly. A pair of unwilling eyes just looked at the figure far away above the sky. With death approaching, the son of Reed, whose mind was darkened, still began to struggle at the last moment of his life. At this moment, he returned to light and tried to use his power to obliterate reality. With the huge difference in strength, he didn't even think about killing his opponent just like that. But it is a pity that the sweeping force of obliteration cannot obliterate all traces of Su Chen. It's as if the other party's existence itself does not have the concept of death, so that this obliteration ability simply can't work. At the last moment, Reed's son finally realized that the opponent's immortal physique had evolved to such a degree. It's even more exaggerated than his ability to reorganize flesh and blood. Last of the last. His whole body was turned into a handful of simple atoms, and then disappeared in the air. At this moment, Su Chen's spirit has already felt a sense of exhaustion, and he has used this ability to obliterate too many times just now. Spirit recovery plus 100. Mental resilience plus 100. Of course, mental exhaustion quickly brought relief. The signs of physical discomfort are also a stimulus, and the infinitely evolving genes soon began to improve. Under the anger of his relatives who were threatened just now, Su Chen took another step in his perception of modifying reality. Obliterate life. Erase the distance. Until now, It is possible to erase an idea, a memory segment, or even an ability of the other party. But the latter is not very stable and requires gradual exercise to achieve a very stable effect. If it hadn't been for the moment to wipe out the other party's idea of blew up, even if Su Chen was confident that he could devour a lot of energy, it would still cause extensive damage to his own city. I don't know how many mutants died at that time. After the son of Reed, who came to disrupt the situation and even threatened, was resolved, bursts of cheers erupted in the city below. The king of our mutants. One again, dared to provoke our mutant king, but also do not know whether to live or die. The supremacy of utopia. Quote. The loud voices of higher and higher waves continued to surge. Su Chen just waved his hand flatly in response. Sure enough, it's extraordinary. At this time, a lady's voice came. Advertisement. Carol, Captain Marvel, bathed in golden light, flew here. In fact, she was watching the battle for some time, just to see for herself the strength of this #1 mutant. When I saw it now, it was much worse than the rumors. You are not bad either. Under the attack of Psionic Storm, Su Chen knew to some extent that the opponent was still fighting Captain Marvel before then. After being expelled from the Earth, under the violent cosmic energy storm, it can once again tear the structure of reality and fly back to reality. This performance is indeed very powerful. At least Su Chen will not try it at this stage. If it weren't for flying back to the Earth, that would be really terrible. Otherwise, the Reed father and son will not keep trying to deal with themselves by expelling the planet. Very well, it seems that our cooperation has a better chance of winning. Captain Marvel Carol has gained some confidence. After all, the strength of the son of Reed is indeed obvious to all. If someone else is replaced, it is absolutely impossible to deal with a darkened boy who can travel through time and tamper with reality, use energy and reorganize his body. Carol didn't talk for long. Soon it turned into a golden meteor and flew to the outer space of the Tianjian Bureau spacecraft base. She has preliminary ideas about how to deal with the planet devourers who will arrive soon. If the silver glider, who acts as the navigator and leads the way, can be fully grasped inside and outside the solar system, then it may be possible that the planet devourer and other star devourers will not come. But the difficulty is very great. Because the flying speed of the silver glider is too fast. After solving the son of Reed who came to the disruptor, Su Chen returned to the Caesar's building. In the magnificent hall on the top floor, above the steps, a newly cast golden throne is placed just above. Su Chen in a white shirt sat on the throne. After the war with S.H.I.E.L.D. ended, he would like to commend some people for their achievements. Specifically, it is natural to continue to award some titles. According to the chess rules inherited from the Hellfire Club at the beginning, there are a total of 32 black and white chess. Previously, only a few titles were randomly given, and a large number of title positions were vacant. Wanda the Scarlet Witch, unsurprisingly, was still canonized as the Black Bishop due to his amazing strength and previous performance. A female mutant who can use the space gate to transmit people and things, Blink, was canonized as a knight. A mutant who can forcibly activate things is canonized as a soldier. A mutant, Prophet, who can predict some pictures in the future has also been canonized as a soldier. After the reward, these people knelt on one knee to express their loyalty to the supremacy of Utopia. Thank you, Supreme. Words of awe and gratitude kept coming. And this time, the mutant prophet said to Su Chen, Sovereign, I have dreamed of some bad scenes. In the past few days, there will be an alien attacking our base. If I'm not mistaken, that base is the combined dark energy operations base of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the past. When this word fell, it immediately attracted the attention of many people. Although the prophet's ability to predict is after he falls asleep, he cannot fully control it. However, the previous wars that attacked the secret facilities of S.H.I.E.L.D. have proved the accuracy of its capabilities and are definitely an inevitable event with a high probability. There is still the universe's Rubik's Cube as in the past, and we continue to develop energy from it, and we continue to build weapons for our utopian soldiers. Emma, the White Queen, pondered for a while, but also very surprised. Although thinking that someone would attack this base, according to the prophet, is it an enemy from outside the sky? Maybe tomorrow night, or the night after tomorrow. The mutant prophet also expressed his helplessness. Although he can predict the future, the scenes he sees in the dream can't tell himself when it will happen. But what is certain is that within this week there will inevitably happen to aliens stealing space gems. I understand. Su Chen, sitting on the golden throne, nodded slightly. In the magnificent hall, a faint golden sun shines through the dome hundreds of meters high, rendering it like a golden hall in epic mythology. Su Chen, who is at the top, already has an aura of an uninjured and prestigious monarch, so that the people in the entire hall are a little too nervous. Soon, the White Queen Emma informed Sentry that the technology of the robot had begun to take over. Captain Marvel Carol has fulfilled one of her promises. The immediate task is to dismantle of the devices that detect the X gene. Able to replicate abilities, change forms, change abilities. According to Bolivar's vision, each Sentry robot can even share capabilities, so as to achieve a very restrained target against the enemy. Such a technology falls into their hands, and it definitely adds a boost to Utopia. Certainly, the Heavenly Sword Bureau also retained this technology, and also agreed to dismantle the malicious detection device for mutants. Dr. Zhao Hailun's stimulating the progress of X-gene technology is very successful. The science and technology team led by Eric Sevig also continued to make progress in the construction of the space gate. Have to say, Ancient One's words, "You are the destiny," are not wrong. At this moment, Su Chen didn't know that the two top scientists of the reunion series were completely wiped out by the Utopian organization. The meeting is over. Seeing that the matter was almost finished, Su Chen waved his hand and disbanded the meeting directly. Despair. Emma, the White Queen in a long white dress, followed in Su Chen's footsteps. Outside the magnificent Golden Hall, the entire Caesar's building's top and fifth floor area is Su Chen's living space. Compared to his dream environment when he was a child, it was far better. Supreme, Susan has become a function of communicating with the magical elements in the world. This is what the teacher who taught her said personally. Very good. There was a smile on Su Chen's face. Compared with this news, the good news from the meeting just now couldn't move him. It seems that Susan is still very talented in magic. Then let her study hard. If necessary, I personally find Kamataj's Sorcerer Supreme and ask her to teach her in person. At this moment, Su Chen is concerned about Susan's future. Do not. However, Susan outside the door heard these words, and she cried very unhappy with an air bag. Oh my God, brother, you are trying to murder me. Let's forget the tuition, you can't just squeeze my childhood time like this. During this period of time, it was schoolwork and magic learning. From time to time, he had to be urged by his brother to exercise the mutant abilities, which made this little witch angry. Su Chen is the role of the eldest brother as the father, and she absolutely refuses to relax her learning curriculum. Advertisement. But Susan complained and complained, but she was still very honest and obedient. She also knew that all her brother's hard work was hard-won, so she was very active in the training of magic and mutant abilities, for fear that she would not have the power to drag her brother down. At the end of this week, just go and play with you whatever you want. Su Chen also understood the other party's hard work, and patted her on the head very fondly. Fortunately, the super killer Mindy herself has also awakened her magic talent. At this time, she raised the hanging ring in her hand, but it showed that she could open a space gate with the help of magic props. This is the magic of Kamataj. As soon as he comes up to teach, he can quickly step into the progress of the shuttle space. To commend the efforts of two people, the White Queen Emma specially ordered the top chefs to cook food. In a luxurious palace with a building of several hundred meters, there are extravagant and precious decorations, top private chefs, and delicacies transported by air from all over the world. Have to say, after becoming the leader of the Utopian organization, Su Chen's life in front of him has become more luxurious and rich. If I can, I also want to test whether it has the invisible X gene. Mindy, who had just had a bite of steak on the spacious safflower wooden table, suddenly made this suggestion. Su Chen pondered for a while. He also understands the other party's intentions. Can you arrange it? Su Chen looked at Emma, the White Queen who was standing by. No problem. Emma nodded. She naturally knew that Super Killer was his only friend to the Supreme, and even said that her capable subordinate might not be as good as the friend who lived through the difficult days in the Supreme's heart. Don't embarrass yourself too much. Su Chen wiped his mouth with a napkin. Recently, he has also heard that the super killer trains very hard, and has not fallen behind in fighting and gun skills. To this end, Su Chen also specially transformed the spacious top and fourth floor into a private training venue. From time to time, Su Chen will also learn about fighting skills under the guidance of Mindy. Also learn about magic knowledge from Kamatage. He is not arrogant. Even if his unpretentious punch is enough to kill a person easily. Even if he doesn't need magic. But being studious and humble is the key to a person's progress. After the war stopped, Su Chen, who had calmed down, began to slowly and systematically understand his superpowers, summarize, and even began to fill in the gaps in knowledge for his shallow age. The world is big, and there is the universe. Even Mr. Fantastic Reed successfully discovered the tip of the iceberg of the multiverse, marked the universe where it was, universe, and observed another single universe named, Ultimate Universe. It is so named because Reed feels that the Ultimate Universe is a timeline that goes backwards. But all this is too far away from me. Su Chen himself has not even stepped out of the earth, the hegemony of utopia has just begun, and his ambition to conquer the stars and the sea has just been implemented. Everything is too early. After dinner, in the quiet night, the moonlight in the sky splashed and fell through the dome. Su Chen began to study alone, feeling the ripples from the fluctuations of reality. Against the backdrop of the vastness of space, I saw a dangling throne, just above the void. The figure on the suspended throne was so tall, the breath radiating from his body even made this lonely planet no more natural sound. This person is Thanos, the great Titan Thanos. Me, use my life as a guarantee, I will definitely bring back the infinite gems. And, I will uphold your will and brand that blue planet belongs to you. A figure wearing a gorgeous robe and kneeling on one knee raised his hands in this way, and firmly held this slender psychic scepter in his palm. I look forward to your good news. After it's done, this planet will belong to you. Thanos, the great Titan sitting on the suspended throne, said coldly. Must. The personable Loki just responded. The Asgardians would not have thought that their missing prince would just become Thanos-capable men. Earth. That night. Joint Dark Energy Base of Operations. The entire base facility sounded the alarm. Attention everyone, please prepare for a safe retreat. The tweeters of every facility resounded. The cosmic Rubik's Cube is out of control, he really came. At this time, the person in charge of the base suddenly smiled. Every utopian member of the base of operations has to retreat in an orderly and timely manner, as if rehearsing well, preparing to retreat without a trace of panic. Waiting for you for many days. The Great Supreme will not be afraid of any challenge. The Avatar said coldly. Since the mutant prophets predicted that an alien from outside would come, they were naturally prepared. And through the mental network constructed by every psychic mutant, this news has been conveyed to the mind of the White Queen Emma in a flash. Soon, the information reached Su Chen's ears in the Caesars building. The most important base facilities. An unknown existence in the distant star field tries to open a space door through the cube of the universe. They know how to use the cosmic Rubik's Cube. As the chief doctor in this black technology base, the main researcher Eric Sevig said very excitedly. Doctor, you also need to pay attention to safety. The clone is a little helpless. Since learning that a foreigner is trying to seize the cube of the universe, the doctor has taken the risk to personally witness how the other party did it. After obtaining the supreme approval, he decided to let him personally observe the changes in the universe's Rubik's Cube. The energy readings of the universe Rubik's Cube climbed uncontrollably. Doppelganger, don't be too close. While absorbing the energy of the universe, this Rubik's Cube is still emitting a faint interference wave and radiation. Eric almost danced around and began to record abnormal experimental data. This is very helpful for my work. Give me some time and I can almost understand how the other side opened this space door on the other side of the starry sky. That's naturally the best. The Avatar can only say helplessly on the side. Boom. At this time, the energy erupting from the universe's Rubik's Cube became more and more frightening. Advertisement. The energy degree is almost bursting. According to Dr. Eric's initial estimate, such a small Rubik's Cube in front of it contains a small universe of energy, endless and majestic. Once it breaks out of control, it can even cause a serious devastating blow to the Earth. Soon, however, the rising energy degree stagnated, and with a boom, the universe's Rubik's Cube spewed out of the energy beams uncontrollably, and a circular space gate was constructed on the wall not far away. Coming. Dr. Eric became more excited. At this time, the space gate constructed is full of boundless rippling fluctuations, which are more violent than any space system ability when it is activated. Stable and firm, even this gate runs through 2 different planets. Despair, accompanied by a quiet sound of footsteps. In this way, a handsome and wicked Loki, wearing a gorgeous robe, walked out of the distant starry sky. Space Gem. Loki, known as the god of mischief and fraud, just looked at the cosmic cube in the facility. This is the most important task of his trip. What? But to his surprise, not far in front of him, there was a doctor of scientific research wearing an experimental suit staring at him with such piercing eyes. His expression was like watching a laboratory mouse, full of incomparable curiosity and interest. Didn't this guy figure out what happened now? This is an alien invasion. Not a circus show. Diaresis, it really is a foolish human being. Rocky shook his head and laughed. As an Asgardian, he naturally has the idea of being superior to the creatures of the other 9 gods. This is especially true of the ignorant and backward Atrium Midgard. Throwing away rune magic, Asgard's scientific research technology alone does not know how many years they have been dumped. Ignorance and fearless, I really feel truly happy for you. The personable Rocky is handsome, and indeed has the demeanor of a noble boy. He just looked at the 2 opposing people with interest, and slightly raised the psychic scepter in his hand. Lower creatures like you don't even know what is behind this psychic scepter. Aliens who know a little about the symbolic meaning behind this scepter have almost fallen to the ground and begged for forgiveness. And you humans, good, I am ignorant and arrogant, so I don't know if I should sympathize with you or be happy for you. As the god of fraud, Thor has a reckless and impulsive character compared to his brother Thor. Loki always has good patience, just like a spider weaving a web patiently, and like a poisonous snake in the shadow, quietly waiting for the prey, and even playing with the prey for this. He was not satisfied with the attitude of these humans. There is no trace of humility and fear at all. What was that just now? Playing yourself like a monkey, when you are a circus animal? Or is it waiting for the rehearsed actors to officially come on stage? What? Suddenly thinking of this, Loki's expression changed suddenly. Very well, I'll be waiting for you for a few nights. At this moment, under the boundless space ripples, Su Chen's figure just stepped out of it. How long have you been waiting for me? What kind of discourse is this? Loki, the god of fraud, suddenly realized that the scene before him was completely unexpected. Is it true that, as just speculated, these people have long known that they are about to arrive here through the opening of the universe's Rubik's Cube? Even so, will you be able to take me down? Cthulhu Loki has always been cunning, even though there is a lot of surprise in his heart, his face does not show any sensuality. There was a sharp look on his beautiful eyes, and he instinctively told him that the teenager who suddenly shuttled in front of him was definitely not easy to provoke. Supreme. The Avatar leaned slightly and said respectfully. This moment, Su Chen's figure has completely walked out of the boundless space ripples. On the slender figure, there was a custom-made personal handmade shirt, a sharp and angular face without a trace of fear, so he looked at the Rocky who had already been predicted. Very good. Foretelling. What if you really know that I will come? Rocky was not at all worried about the scene in front of him. After all, an ant is an ant after all. Do humans dare to make a mistake in front of me? Stop talking. The psychic scepter in Loki's hand was raised high, and suddenly the psychic gem inlaid on the head of the rod was aimed at Su Chen not far away. Whoosh! This infinite gem originally contained infinite cosmic energy. Under an excitation, a terrifying light beam was completely exploded, directly bombarding Su Chen in front of him. It's not enough. Su Chen waved his hand, and the surging thought power fluctuations turned into a thought power barrier in front of him. Suddenly it was a thin shelter, and the figure in front of him was completely covered. This hand shelter barrier is undoubtedly the Magneto learned from the previous battle. The defeated Magneto can form an absolute barrier position by manipulating the magnetic field to resist most of the energy attacks. Now, naturally, this method was completely mastered by Su Chen by analogy. Click. I have to say that the energy beams bombarded in front of them are indeed a bit overbearing, but within 2 seconds, a lot of glass crack-like patterns were formed on this shelter barrier. Not enough, Loki sneered, seeming to be pleased with the enemy's arrogance. Can be the next second. The smile that appeared in his eyes disappeared without a trace. Impossible. I saw that the thin and transparent barrier became denser, and the cracks that appeared were gradually repaired. Not only that, the energy fluctuations that he continued to blast began to continue to overflow, as if an inexplicable attraction swallowed it up and digested it. Rocky suddenly realized that he was taking advantage of his strength. The enemy has a very superb power of thought and energy utilization. The jumping grasshopper is still a grasshopper after all. He retracted the psychic scepter that was continuously output, and suddenly raised it high. Under a single thought, he triggered a surging psychic wave, and directly blasted Su Chen in front of him with a psychic-level attack. The invisible mental fluctuations fall in Su Chen's mind, either completely blocked by the mental barrier, or swallowed and absorbed. The constructed system did not even reflect the metamorphosis information of the gene. It stands to reason that the gems of the soul will not be so weak. Advertisement. Unfortunately, there are not many people in the universe who can use infinite gems flexibly. Su Chen, who has been influenced by Black Phoenix and Professor X, is just like a okay person. Boom. He kicked the ground with his right foot, and since then, a pit has been exploded on the ground, and the whole figure flies out like a cannonball. At this moment, under this fierce offensive, Loki seemed to think he was facing his brother. Boom. When he hurriedly raised his hand to support, a faint divine power fluctuation lingered out, but the huge force that came from the bombardment was simply huge. For a while, Loki even thought he was bombed by an asteroid. Puff. He vomited a long mouthful of blood, his armor burst open, and the whole person was very embarrassed and smashed the wall behind. Ants. A grasshopper that jumps. A smile appeared on Su Chen's Langao Senin face, and said, "Now tell me, are you an ant or a grasshopper?" These are the words that Loki mocked humans just now, and now they are quoted again by Su Chen, but they are more uncomfortable than killing him. "I know who you are, Cthulhu Loki." Su Chen directly pointed out his identity. The mutant prophet of the prophecy is naturally unable to describe the specific face of the alien. But Su Chen has searched the memory of soldiers in the fairy palace. Memory, however, presents frames of images like a movie. So, he directly recognized the identity of the other party. A poor man who failed to fight for the throne with his brother Thor, fell into the abyss under the Rainbow Bridge and completely disappeared. At least in the memory of the soldiers of the fairy palace, he is such a poor and tragic image. A poor desolate ghost who lost the throne and was not favored by Odin. Now he has changed and came to my place with an arrogant expression. "It seems that you have another adventure after you disappeared. Ah, no wonder they say you are a foreign fool. No wonder you won't find your own father." Su Chen coldly lifted the veil of the other party's identity. Unloved. There is no succession to the throne. Poor loser. A fool who doesn't know where. One by one entry messages made Loki's complexion drastically changed, and his conservatism of life and death was broken. Especially this word made Loki's face gradually distorted. As the god of mischief and fraud, Loki, apart from rage, immediately realized that the other party was safe and sound under the psychic fluctuations. He must be a psychic master, and he may have been in contact with Asgardians, so that he got information from it. Very good, Loki sneered, and was previewed in advance of his fate. The opponent is another unfathomable master. Loki, who retreated, also knew that he might have missed this action. But it doesn't matter. The grasshopper can jump and think that he will go to the sky, but unfortunately, the distance between you and the sky is too far, you don't know what you are facing. This time, he raised the psychic scepter again, and under the resonance fluctuation of the infinite gem, the cosmic cube placed in the facility suddenly increased in energy. The earth began to crack, and the surrounding buildings were crumbling for this. "This is a great gift for you before I leave." Finished. If the universe's Rubik's Cube is going to get out of control, it will release extremely huge spatial fluctuations and begin to shake the surrounding real world. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.